Welcome, everybody, to NorCal Sports Network and the Krueger Show. We're doing a simulcast, a dual broadcast here, and we've got Ned Colletti after a Giants victory, 5-0 behind the excellent outing of Kyle Harrison.
And we should mention to everybody that that's all the time we have for tonight after that open. But Ned, good to see you. And thanks to everybody. It was a long open. Ned didn't have a ton of time. But later that same day, I thought Kyle Harrison, I know we're going to get into Brian Sabian, who was honored last night, and Ned's here to talk a little bit about that. And we're also pleased that Brian was given that award. So we'll talk a lot about Brian and Ned and their run in San Francisco. But also tonight, I mean, the Giants needed a win in the worst way. And, they have not had a lot of success under Farhan Zaidi. And this is year 6. But, man, tonight, Kyle Harrison, I should say, the young lefty from just across the street from where I'm sitting right now at De La Salle High School, they got that one right? They paid over slot to get him. They saved money in another part of the draft so they could buy him out of his UCLA commitment. They did it. They developed him. They brought him to the big leagues, and he looks like maybe the next, outstanding Giants starting pitcher. At least he was outstanding tonight.
Hey, well, they've won two games on this so far 7-game road trip, and both wins are attributed to Kyle Harrison. So he's getting something right. Yeah, Harrison looked very, very sharp, and the Giants, they've hit the ball hard this year a lot of times right at people. Tonight, they scored 2 runs on dribblers that didn't even go 40 feet. So sometimes that's the way the game goes. But they did need this win tonight because you cannot lose a series to Colorado right now. But they got the win, and, we'll get into more of the Giants game itself and the Giants as we go. But we've got Ned here for about 50 minutes. So I want to get into this situation last night with Brian Sabian being inducted into the baseball, the Bay Area not the baseball, but the Bay Area Hall of Fame, which includes athletes from all sports and executives. And so Ned was there. Ned, tell us how it went.
It was spectacular. The people who put it on were great. All the recipients, and there were 5 last night. People who had great careers and really synonymous with the Bay Area. And everybody spoke well. Patrick Marlowe, who I've known a long time, and is somebody I work with in San Jose now with the Sharks. John Taylor, the great 49er. Jenny Thompson, tremendous Olympic athlete. And then Chris Wondolowski, leading scorer, I think, all time in MLS soccer. So it was great. And the way they set it up is pretty interesting. They have somebody introduce the recipient, and they'll talk for 3 or 4 minutes. Then the recipient comes up, and the recipient's up there for maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So it's not a long, drawn out situation where people kind of lose interest and start walking around. And then they did a great question and answer afterward. But it was a phenomenal evening, and the Giants showed up very well for their past leader, who, to me, this will be the first of at least 3 Hall of Fames. One at the ballpark with the Giants Hall of Fame at some point in time, and then as you introduced almost clairvoyantly there, Danny, the Baseball Hall of Fame, I think, also down the road. But it was special. People flew in from all over the country for a day to pay homage to a great person and a great leader.
No doubt. And one of the, it's funny, the Giants, growing up in San Francisco and watching them, and they struggled in many of those years under Bob Lurie, and they had Tom Haller and Speck Richardson and different general managers along the way. And it seemed like it didn't really start to turn around until Al Rosen and Roger Craig showed up, and in like 80 at the end of the 85 season, like September of 85, and Al Rosen was a great baseball player, awesome third baseman, and really a terrific guy. I had him on the show many times. I have interviewed him at least 10 times. He's no longer with us, but the great Al Rosen was tough, really tough.
Oh, yes.
And he was a no frills guy, and he saw baseball really clearly, and he was a valued executive with the Yankees. And I remember sitting there as the Yankees were beating up on the Red Sox and the Boston Massacre. They showed him sitting behind the plate or behind the dugout with all the Yankee executives and Steinbrenner. And so he goes way back, great third baseman. And
batting champion, I think, too.
What's that?
Or AL MVP. I mean,
yeah, AL MVP.
I mean, and what a hitter, and also just a tough guy. And he just walked in and said, you know what? If you don't have a good attitude, then there's the door. There was a lot of complaining and bitching and moaning about Candlestick and how cold it was, and they just demanded that the culture change. And Roger Craig was the positive guy, so they kind of turned the thing around. Then after Rosen, there was Bob Quinn. And Bob Quinn brought in Sabian, and Quinn also was a very, very good executive. He was the executive of the year, if you remember, in 1990 in Cincinnati, when they went wire to wire with the Nasty Boys and Hatcher and Sabo and Eric Davis. Maybe Parker, and they had a bunch of guys. I mean, that 90 Reds team was amazing. And so Quinn brought in Sabes, and Sabes becomes the general manager going into the 97 season. I was at a Giants Cubs game late in September of 96, and the team was just, it was Kim Batiste and Rick Wilkins, and they did have Rich Aurelia, but they had very little talent. And I thought 97, I mean, 90, they'd won 103 games in 93. But 97, I thought, was when Sabes kind of took control. He brought in a bunch of veterans, and he made some really, really good trades, including the Matt Williams trade that brought in Jeff Kent, sending Alan Watson and Fausto Macy to the Angels for JT Snow. And then you had Bill Miller coming up at that point. You had Rich Aurelia, and there was a nice little core there. I remember Larry Baird saying to me early in 2000, that they lost about $100 million in that final decade at Candlestick, but between Barry and you and Brian, you guys probably saved them about $100 million. Like, they lost $100 million, they probably would have lost $200 million. And you kept the team competitive and established the momentum that went into the ballpark. And it's like, I'm gonna see Sabes' Giants career. Of course, he had a whole Yankee career, but I see his Giants career as almost like two acts. It was the act at Candlestick to get into the stadium, to get the revenues, to be able to compete at the highest level with the best teams in the game. And then it was the World Series era where he really put together Belt and Pablo and Posey and Bum and Kane and Lincecum, and there's Crawford. A lot of hits in a row there. Yes. And that momentum of homegrown, almost Panic and Crawford and all those homegrown players, and the 3 titles, the guy really had an amazing Giants career and made a huge impact on the franchise. Maybe as big an impact as almost anybody in the history of the franchise. And it's an iconic franchise that goes back to the 1880s. So everything he gets as far as applause, in my mind, well-deserved.
No doubt. I had a chance to speak last night in the introduction. Chris Berman, the great ESPN celebrity and TV star, opened up the introduction of Sabes, and then he called me up halfway through. And I made mention, the 96 teams, I came at the end of 94 during the strike. And 95, we weren't very good, but 96 was really bad. And, we were calling players up at the end of the season from the instructional league. Never did it since and never did it before, but that's how thin we were. And Sabes and he started traveling with the big league club in September of that year. And I had been traveling with him a lot of that time, couple years before that. And, we would walk after games. We would walk till 3 or 4 in the morning. have a glass of wine or a couple pops here and there, and just keep walking. I could take you to the place in Montreal where we stood on a street and talked about trading Matt or trading Barry, and made a decision there in the middle of the night. Hey, it's going to have to be Matt, and we're going to keep Barry. Which Matt wins.
Good move.
But Barry Bonds is best player I've ever seen.
Matt Williams, you got to remember this. This is the off season of 1996. Matt Williams came up with the Giants, was a draft pick in 86, came up to the Giants major league in 87. He had a bust out amazing, he's going to catch Roger Maris 94 that was ended by the strike. At this point in time, Giants fans had been through the bad and were wanting to enjoy the good, and it was not a popular move at all to move.
No. The lunatic fringe he talked about, he says, I am not an idiot. There wasn't really much choice. The two players were taking up probably half the payroll. And, we weren't in a position playing at Candlestick with the revenue that they weren't generating to really continue to build a team around those two. It was tough enough around Barry for a little while, but that was a key thing. And as I was saying, I made mention last night to, the ownership of the Giants has been phenomenal. Their vision, their ability to wrestle the team away from Tampa. This goes back a while now, but they were just about done. They were waiting for an owners meeting to approve the deal, and Bill White, who was the National League president, gave
former Giant in his own right,
gave Peter and Larry and the group like 30 days to raise enough money. And to Bob Lurie's credit, he cut the price down a little bit to make it a touch easier. But that's where it started. And so they do that. 93, I think, was their first year as ownership.
Oh, it was an amazing year.
Then you
won 103 games.
Yeah. And
the 94 team was an amazing team. They had a Darryl Strawberry. They were running down the Dodgers, and then the strike hit. And then, then the strike hurt. I mean, the strike was very personal for Bay Area fans, and there were a lot of people that were turned off. And it wasn't like everybody came back in 95 all super enthusiastic like in some markets. And there was like a really important time in Giants history where you needed a strong leader who could sell the program. And 96, I looked up the 96 Giants as we were sitting here, and it's like, these names are just, it's amazing reading some of these names. Doug Mirabelli, Wilson Delgado, J.R. Phillips, Marcus Jensen, Mel Hall, Trent Hubbard, Dax Jones, Jacob Cruz, Desi Wilson, Kim Batiste, Steve Decker, Rick Wilkins, Dave McCarty, and Sean Dunston was on that team, Stan Javier. But, that was I thought a huge turning point for the franchise. And Sabes injects his competitive fire and some really creative, very, very incredible trades, really, if you think about it. And he built that 97 team. That team won the division. 98, you guys lose the one-game playoff to Traxel at Wrigley Field. 99, I think you finished maybe 2 games behind, maybe something like that.
A little bit more, but yeah.
Okay. And then 2000, you guys win 97 games, and Ellis Burks and, all an incredible AL-like lineup that first year. Bonds, I mean, just amazing. Bonds, Kent, Burks. I thought that team was spectacular. 2001, Barry goes for 73 home runs. 2002, you guys win the National League pennant and go to the World Series. 2003, you won 100 games. So, I mean, that run there was not fueled necessarily by the farm system that you guys inherited or built even at that point. It was about saves and creative trades and the right kinds of guys, and you guys pushing all the right buttons and making the right in-season trades. And, it was, you look back on those, the 90s there and think about how that really set the groundwork for what would come in 10, 12, and 14, Ned?
Absolutely. I think the 97 team helped really build the ballpark, I think, in a lot of ways. If you remember back in that point in time, there was a referendum to be passed. This was not a sure thing, even though it was self-funded. And if the team had been like the 96 team, I'm not sure anybody's supporting any measures to do anything, including the ownership. So I think that team was one of our favorite teams as we look back, and Sabes and I talk about the different teams that had come through here. And I think it was a very important year in the history of the franchise. And as the leader of baseball ops, he deserves a lot of credit for that. Somebody said, and I haven't done the math if this is accurate or not, but in an 8-year run starting in '97, if the baseball playoffs were set up the way they are today, they win 7 out of 8.
Yeah, I said that you would have been in the playoffs from '97 through '04. First 8 years, you would have made the playoffs under today's format.
So think about that. But to go back to you make a good point, Larry, about it wasn't farm system driven, those teams. We didn't have time. We didn't have time to sign, draft, sign, develop, and wait 3 or 4 or 5 years for somebody to blossom and become a big league player. We were up against it in a way financially to be successful immediately. Hence the trades for Jeff Kent, for JT Snow, as you said. Rich Aurelia was a trade. Billy Miller was homegrown. Darrell Hamilton, the free agent, signed. There was
late Darrell Hamilton. That was a fun team, and there was a lot of big time guys injected. Did Brian and you change the philosophy as far as the minor leagues along the way? Because you inherited a farm system that wasn't necessarily percolating. I mean, if you think of the Giants in the '60s, in the late '60s, I mean, all kinds of guys. George Foster, Gary Matthews, Willie Kirkland, Bill White, Bobby Bonds, Jack Clark. I mean, they had a lot of guys there in this late '60s, early '70s. George Foster was amazing. They moved him.
Maddox.
Gary Maddox. I mean, they're out. They produced a ton of outfielders.
Yes.
And then you guys, then the farm system was, I don't know if it was stripped down, if they lost all their good scouts, but the thing really evolved through multiple regimes, and it never really got percolating. And it didn't necessarily, even though you guys were having success in the '90s, it wasn't really, as we described here, it wasn't really going for you at that point. But somewhere along the line, Sabes so there was a new addition to the organization or a new philosophy, but suddenly the Giants hit, and it's Lincecum and Kane and Matt Bumgarner and Posey and Pablo and Belt and Crawford and Panic, and you start looking around, and they had a ton of homegrown guys,
a couple of bullpen guys, Wilson and Romo.
Yeah, I mean, all the people behind the scenes. Was there a philosophy change or a hire there or was it just suddenly maybe you get more in tune with your scouts, or was it a lucky run? Because without that run of personnel farm system, 10, 12, and 14 just don't happen.
Well, I think a couple things, probably many things happen, but two that as you say that come to mind immediately. And we tribute a great tribute last night to our dear friend Dick Tidrow, who passed away a couple of years ago.
Right.
He was, as Brian describes him, a savant, especially with pitching. And I think when you look back after that run, the '95 team, and I think a little bit after that, they start failing. They start losing games. And so it takes them from drafting in the middle or late in the first round to in the top 10, probably. I think Lincecum might have been a 10th pick or 11th pick. And I think Buster was before that. And so they started to really, and it's not easy just because you're picking in the top 10 to hit.
They still had their Jason Grillies and their Kurt Ainsworths and their,
they turned it up with the draft, and they were in a good spot because they had established themselves. The franchise had been established. The ballpark was a huge success. They could take a breath a little bit and rebuild it from the bottom up. Before that, there wasn't any time to rebuild it to the bottom up. If you remember once, we lost a pick by signing Michael Tucker. Because
voluntarily.
And the equation for that is we needed a player, and we didn't have enough finance to sign the player and also have the pick. So we
I mean, I not to interrupt you, but now looking back on it, Ned, do you think that maybe, I mean, I know you have great respect for the owners and you don't want to fracture any of those relationships, but I mean, let's be honest. Look where they're at right now financially. They own their ballpark. They've got a revenue stream. It's not the Dodgers 700 million, but it's like 500 million. They own lots of the land around the ballpark. They own the ballpark in perpetuity. So every nickel they make there, look how much money is on this side of it. Maybe they should have been a little looser with the purse strings going into it, knowing that, I mean, seeing now what the financial windfall is, they could, maybe an extra 15 or $20 million and a couple of those years could have pushed you guys over the top. I mean, think about it.
Remarkable to do that. Something else that we didn't have was a complex in the Dominican.
Right.
Where we played was at an Army base or an Air Force base. We used their diamond. And I can remember going down there and, we had to go through security to go watch our guys play. Now they have a beautiful, complex. But that also took a hit during the period of time you're describing. And, the amount of players from Latin America that were signed and developed was minuscule. I mean, and again, we did not have the facility that almost every other team in the game had. So a lot of things changed. But I got to tell you, I'm not up there very often. I'm up there maybe once a year, twice a year. When I pass Mission Street on 280 and I see the building that is, I mean, going back to, the late 90s when the ballpark, or 2000 when the ballpark came up, the amount of growth in that area and high tech and big places, I think, the ballpark, when Sabian and I would go there and it was somebody living in a van and in a warehouse.
Right. And believe me, when I was in high school, the teachers used to say, hey, if you don't study hard, you're going to wind up a bum on 3rd and Howard. Well, 3rd and Howard is like high rent district. You'd love to live on 3rd and Howard. I mean, that ballpark started the launch of the whole renovation of the Eastern waterfront, which is going to go on in San Francisco for the next, 35 years. And pretty soon, there'll be people that have waterfront property that's brand new 50 years from now, and it'll be like at Candlestick Point, and that will all be renovated on that Eastern waterfront because everybody wants waterfront property. Let's talk about Sabes though for a second, because there's a genius there, and it's interesting. It's like he's volatile and direct and patient and calculating. I mean, it's like what a tough job, because it's like, you're watching stuff every day. So many times you guys are, I'm sure, on those long walks venting to each other about things that didn't go right, or some frustration from within. There's all these alpha personalities, the managers, the other coaches, all the drama around the players, and just, there's so much that goes on that never bubbles to the surface in the media. But I look at Sabes and, and I've loved the conversations I've had with him through the years, but there is a bubbling intensity, almost volcanic, like, kind of feel to what's underneath. But to be in that job, you got to be patient, and you got to sit there and watch it every day and somehow not flip the spread and not lose your mind and stay the course. And it's like, how would you describe his personality, Ned? Because very unique. I mean, you get the feel, you felt the intensity of the desire you guys had to get it done in every conversation. And yet he wasn't, he didn't go off half-cocked and make a bunch of stupid knee-jerk decisions. It was always really well thought out. How would you describe his skill set?
Well, I think you gave a pretty good scouting report as you started talking about it. I've seen all sides of him. I saw him, throw a big thing of popcorn out the suite window after a bad umpiring call. I saw him throw his cell phone up against a wall and the battery fell out. And we're looking around the suite for the battery, as we're all trying to cool down. And it actually had landed in his sport coat pocket, like a $1,000,001 shot. I've seen bottles of water go off the wall. You talk about Al Rosen. That was kind of Al Rosen's.
Right. You turn over the spread 2-3 times a year.
Yeah,
Nobody's eating today.
So there was a tremendous, and you don't have his success without intensity. And sometimes, it becomes loud. We had many conversations that were heated, respectful always, but loud. And there were some nights you left the ballpark at 2 or 3 in the morning, not talking to each other because we were just fed up with how the team played, but also with my line of logic, his line of logic. And the next morning we started again and did well. But the thing,
how many GMs are tone setters? Not too many. These days, I don't know.
Not these days, bro. Well, maybe, I don't know.
There's a lot more of the egghead types and the brainiacs, and yes, I did go to Yale. It's those guys now. I'm not saying they're not skilled or smart. They are, but I'm just saying as far as the Giants' personality, it was a lot of Dusty. It was a lot the manager. It was a lot Barry and Will Clark before that, but it was Sabes was a big part of the personality of the Giants, and it just, I don't know. Am I wrong in saying that, you think?
No, I think you're right on. And the players that we acquired in the winter of 96 to 97 season, and even after that, they were players that kind of and our personalities are somewhat similar. We were drawn to because we could relate to how they played and how they went at it. Jeff Kent, one of the great Giants of all time, and JT. As you went through their personalities, Sabes and I, neither one of us grew up with the silver spoon. Neither one of us was really giving anything but opportunity from time to time. Okay, neither one of us grew up in big houses or had big fancy car, or had a full ride someplace, either through parents or grandparents or through athletic or academic scholarship. So everything we did was like hard earned. And the players we brought in were the same way. Jeff Kent had a lot to prove. JT Snow had a lot to prove. These guys had that character. Darryl Hamilton had a lot to prove. And so that was really, Billy Miller always had a lot to prove. They had that type of characteristic to them. And I got to say one more thing before I forget it. The thing that separated him, and you mentioned the word patience, Larry, and I mentioned this last night in the introduction, the thing that separated him for me amongst everybody I've ever been around in any sport was his knack for knowing when to make a decision.
Wow.
Most people think the decision is trade, don't trade, sign, don't sign, sell, don't sell, all these, and it's going to be how it turns out is how your decision is going to be graded. He taught me a lot of things, but the most prominent one was, it's not only that. The other half of it, if not 60% of it, is when do you make the decision? I can't tell you how many times I go to him with an idea in February or March or middle of the season, and he would just sit across the desk and not say anything. He'd just kind of stare at me and not say nothing. And then 6 months later, he'd go, hey, you remember when you came to see me in March and you had that idea about this player and that player? I go, yeah. He goes, now, go do it now. Let's make that deal now. So that's a knack that most people don't have. Most people are anxious to fix right here, right now. That was the greatest trait besides projecting young talent that turned out to be great big league players, which is another art. But those are the two things, that ability to project, but that also ability to know when to make it.
He sensed momentum as well as anybody. To me, I think of Giants history, I think of 2 general manager seasons. 87, Al Rosen. He trades for Kevin Mitchell, Craig Lefferts, Dave Dravecky, Don Robinson, Rick Russell, Dave Henderson, all in one summer, and the Giants win the division.
Yes.
That was a great one. Incredible. And then the other one I think of Sabes in 02 with the Kenny Lofton. Because if you chart that season, and I don't know if anybody's taken the time to go look up these numbers, but I can remember because I lived it. When the Giants were scoring about 4 runs a game, struggling to score 4 runs a game, make that trade in July for Kenny Lofton. From the moment that guy showed up through the rest of the regular season and the playoffs, Giants scored about 6 runs a game. They went from 4 runs a game to 6 runs a game with Kenny Lofton. And Sabes just had a good idea for what piece. And there's no doubt in my mind that the 0-2 Giants don't go to the World. And nobody would ever say this, but it's really true. The 0-2 Giants do not go to the World Series with all the talent they had without Kenny Lofton.
Without a doubt. Go back
that
to
was Sabes.
LCS.
That was Sabes getting him for nothing in July.
St. Louis with a home
Perfect
run
guy.
wins the entire game.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But he was the perfect guy because he was the ignition. That team was having problems at the top of the lineup with Bernard and other guys. They needed somebody who was an on-base guy, who was a presence. Kenny gave them a presence, and they just took off offensively and carried the momentum. It allowed the lineup to lengthen. I think it pushed David Bell down to like maybe the 8 hole. And all of a sudden you got David Bell in the 8 hole. And what an incredible lineup that was. And the whole thing took off. And I just think that Sabes really, I credit him fully for that 0-2 because the timing on that trade, and that was the perfect piece at the perfect time. And then the Scudero thing, I don't know if you want to call that luck or whatever, but I mean, getting Scudero, these are years later, but to me, Rosen in 87 and Sabes in 0-2, the general managers that really, seize the moment.
That's good. That's good.
Ned, I got a question for you that I think a lot of our listeners are very into the current Giants situation. And I want to ask you as a general manager, you talked about Brian having the knack of knowing when to make a decision. And I want to know the mindset. You always said you got to know your players. You got to know what they're thinking, their psyche. And can a minor leaguer who's performing well get discouraged if he doesn't get the call up, especially when he sees other guys that are, not performing and he wants to get the call? I'm thinking of Elliot Ramos. He's already said, hey, he's already told Farhan, I want to play. What do I got to do? And he's went out. They told him what he needed to do. He's went out and done it. And then
what's he hitting down there?
Close to 300. Close to 300, 8 homers. He's pretty much leading the team in homers, exit velocity. He's changed his swing the last couple of years because they told him they want to see more get balls in the air because he was. Can a guy get too discouraged? We saw Luis Matos have a great spring. They told him this offseason, beef up. He was too tiny last year. Go beef up. The guy put on 20 pounds of muscle, comes back, has a great camp, and then gets sent down. Now he's struggling. Can certain guys lose some of their maybe just get a little discouraged and say, gosh, feel hopeless? Do you see that at all?
Yeah, but you know what? There's not, except, I don't even know if you could say it's about the Dodgers. There's not enough great players to go around or really good players to go around. So guys are going to get their chance unless there's something really, really bad about the human being. I'm sure that Elliott will get his opportunity at some point in time. Yeah, you get discouraged a little bit, but that's part of competition. Not everything is going to fold up to just the way you want it when you want it, and some guys got to wait longer for it. There's no doubt that they have all sorts of analytical data that would probably put him in big league situations against certain big league pitchers where the results wouldn't be the same. Is that right or wrong? I don't know. Whatever. It could be, though. It could be part of their thought process. So,
I think it also has something to do with the fact that, he's not necessarily Farhan's guy. Neither was Joey Bart. Joey Bart's doing all right in Pittsburgh. He's probably, if all things being equal, would the Giants rather have Joey Bart or Tom Murphy? Probably Joey Bart. But he's now in Pittsburgh because he was a Sabes draft pick and not a Farhan draft pick. And maybe, I don't know if that's hurting Elliot Ramos, but Ramos, it's funny. You bring his name up, the reaction that people give you is he's had his chance. And I'm like, what? He's had his chance.
76 lifetime at bats.
I mean,
mixed over about 6 or 10.
We've watched all kinds of guys struggle mightily for months. This guy has never been given 3 weeks to see what he's got. And it's funny. I was talking to Marty about him, and I said, Marty, who does he remind you of? And he's like Willie Mays. Now he's obviously not Willie Mays, but he's far as short right-handed hitter, tons of bat speed, tons of power, great arm, can play center field. I mean, he's not Willie Mays, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I'm just saying, Elliot Ramos is a talented guy, and I agree, Ned. At some point, they'll probably give him a shot. It is interesting though, as a general manager, when you see change in these jobs, and are you kind of guys do like their own guys seemingly a little bit more, and sometimes if like a new general manager takes over, a guy that maybe the old guy wouldn't move, the new guy's like, yeah, I'll move him. I don't care.
Yep. Well, you see it. I never understood that. It's like the same thing as when a new GM comes in, everybody gets fired. I never understood. I understand why that can happen, but that was not my style. Nor was it my style just to move people because they didn't come into the organization when I did. I think that's foolish. As I said a couple minutes ago with Danny, there's not enough good players around. You're going to move somebody out because they didn't draft them, they didn't sign them. That to me is foolish. That's really egotistical in my opinion, in a bad way.
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught it. I don't know if you caught Dog the other day, but he was spectacular. And he comes on NBC Sports Bay Area.
On the pregame show.
Yeah, on the postgame. The postgame with Laura Britt.
I think it was the pregame, wasn't it?
Was it? I saw it in the postgame. But anyway, he might have. It might be it was a replay. But he came on, and they're like, "Yeah, what do you think of Farhan?" And Dog's like, if you got, I've been a talk show host. He's just going into his whole thing. If I got a talk show for 6 years and 5 years I don't have good ratings. Do I get a contract? No, I'm out. I'm gone. I'm it. And he's like, he's had one good year with Sabe's guys. He had Posey. He had all those guys, so Dog's doing his whole thing. He's like, and he basically, and it was hilarious too, because at one point he turns it on Estes and this poor Laura Britt. He's like, what do you guys think? They're going, oh no, we're not. We just ask the questions here. We don't get involved. They were like, we're not touching that. He's like, okay, well, you know what? And then he starts talking about Cashman. He's like, Cashman's almost getting run out of town. He's won World Series. I mean, what's Farhan won? So he's going off on Farhan.
Yeah, then he says, what's he? They gave him a 2-year extension. He goes, what's he got? What's he got? A job for life?
Yeah. What the heck? So then he kind of took in on the Dodgers, and he's like, $800 million, all the money they spent. What's their rotation? What's their outfield? They got Mookie Betts playing shortstop. I mean, what the heck? Why you got your best hitter and you put him at shortstop? And for $800 million, I would expect a better team. And he's questioning the bottom of the lineup, and he's like, and nobody cares. They win 130 games. They got to win it in October. All that crap. I don't care. It doesn't matter. They can win 125, 130. Doesn't matter. Then they win in October. It's a failure. So he and in classic Russo, right? But what do you think? I mean, give me your thoughts on those 2 points from Russo. I mean, how much time should a general manager have? I mean, I don't know what your feeling is, but I mean, if you're running the Giants, do you agree with where he's coming from? Should Farhan have gotten that extension to wed him to Melvin? Do you think he's going to be here all the way through? And then are the Dodgers, for all their talent, maybe kind of a little bit flawed and not as good of a team as we all thought coming out of spring training? What do you think?
Well, a lot to unpack there, Mr. Krueger.
What I'm saying? One lousy time.
I'll start with the Dodgers first. I find it almost laughable. People say they spent $1 billion this winter. $1 billion. They spent no, they almost spent $1.3 billion. If maybe they spent $1.3 billion. and they act like 300 million is like, you shouldn't even bring it up because it's only 300 million. It'll take, Tampa Bay 7 years to spend 300 million on top of the billion. So, I think that, Walker Buehler, getting him back would be big. I think the bottom of the order does frighten me a little bit, and they got to stay healthy. That staff has got to stay healthy. If today was October, excuse me, we think they got a pretty good shot. It's not October though; it's barely May. So, but
what do you think? I mean, the key rip was the wisdom. He was questioning the wisdom of playing Mookie Betts, one of the great offensive players.
I'm not
at shortstop. What do you?
I've said that on other shows on the Dodgers flagship. In fact, that Mookie Betts is a Hall of Fame player, but he's not a big guy. He's not as big as Corey Seager. He's not close to the size of a Corey Seager. And to play that position as hard as it is, with everything he's got to do on a daily basis, 120, 130 games in, is he going to be as good as he is right now? I don't know. I don't know if the wear and tear takes its toll on him. I think what's hurting them a little bit is Milwaukee got off to a good start because everybody
Adames,
and that would really put them in a great spot. But they're doing pretty good. So are they going to trade their guy? So I think that it's still a work in progress. The roster's not locked in. Bottom of the order's got to get a little bit better. I think it will. Top of the order may cool off a little bit because what those top 4 or 5 guys have done, including Hernandez, I mean, that's spectacular. So, that may come back a little bit and the bottom may come up a little bit. So how they're going to pitch and how healthy they're going to be will kind of tell their story.
I think they'll add a shortstop. They'll add a shortstop by the
and they may add another reliever. So who knows? They're always.
We're all very concerned about them because they're really the audience is very very concerned about. Will they get that final piece that pushes them over the top?
Get something to drink.
I'm going to vomit. Okay, what about the Giants though? What does Farhan get forever? I know this is you don't want to, you want to tread lightly here because of who you are and you're standing in the game and this and that. It's not good form to necessarily rip other general managers and say these guys should be fired. I get that. Believe me, I get that. Dog's got a point. I mean, the guy's been here for 6 years. It's time to see something, and I haven't seen the farm system development. Their farm system, I think, according to Danny, is ranked the lowest of all the teams in the division. And I think to me, that's kind of unacceptable in year 6.
Below them, but they're like 19th in the game.
Yeah, 19th. What do you think? Is Farhan? Should the Giants fans too patient? Should they be more impatient? How do you view the autopsy on his regime here so far?
Well, I think it's in some ways he's had length already, being there as long as he has, and sometimes it's a little bit of a work in progress. And what I do know is that I don't know what the conversations are, what the upper echelon ownership culture is with him, and what they've decided what path to go down. I do think that when you see empty seats at your home ballpark, and you see a lot of them, I think that grabs everybody's attention. How much of the ownership was around for the Candlestick days and can appreciate how hard it is to win, can appreciate what it's like when you don't sell every seat and you don't have a waiting line for your season tickets. Do they understand all of that? Because this organization is one of the great stories in sport for where it came from and where it went. But, do they want it to slip back any percentage? So, I think that it was a great vote of confidence for Farhan to get an extension. And I've said this many times on the show, it's the last point I'll make, that whenever you make a move with a head coach, a manager, or a GM, you better know pretty much who's coming in next, and you better know they're going to be better at what they do, whatever that is. Because you can't make a move with somebody, change somebody's life, change many lives, because people are connected to whoever the leadership is in any organization, and then bring somebody else in that ends up down the same road and the same path. So it's more than just removing somebody. That may actually be 40% of it. It's the other 60% is making sure that the next one you got is going to solve the issues that caused you to do part one. So I don't know, but I do think that they may rescue this season with their pitching. Long way to go yet. You got a lot of guys that are still out, or some key guys that are still out. They may rescue it with their pitching, but what they kind of lack, and Russo made this point the other day too. And Larry, you always ask me this question: where's the star player? Where's the drawing card? And I would always answer you, well, you can't. You still got to win, but who's going to the Hall of Fame? I think is something that he said the other day.
Yeah, he did. Didn't you say he did see it?
Yeah,
I mean,
and I brought
it's
up
like the
last
Giants
night.
don't have the Hall of Fame player. The Dodgers have Hall of Fame players.
I
The
did
Yankees
3 or
have
4.
Hall of Fame players. I mean, the
Yeah,
Giants have
3 or
gone
4.
after Hall of Fame players. The Giants have struck out in an attempt to get Hall of Fame players.
Larry, I said this last night after the Giants got swept this week in Philadelphia. I said, which one player do the Giants have that might start on the Phillies? And it's the only one we can think of might be Jung-Hoo Lee, because the Phillies don't have, the greatest center fielder. He's not hitting, and Lee's a better defensive guy. But
I run that test all the time with teams, and you're right.
And it's who do they have? I mean, I don't think anybody on this team.
Maybe Doval.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about regular players, not the pitching. Because the pitching, they've got 3 or 4 pitchers. I've said this.
Well, the Giants just aren't hitting. I mean, they're not.
I don't think
they don't hit. They aren't scoring runs.
Right.
So it's really hard to. It's really hard to. I mean,
I don't think they make the playoffs.
Only Wade is having
roster,
a good year, really.
But because of their offense, if they somehow improve the offense and get into the playoffs with their pitching, they will be a very tough team to play. They will be a tough opponent.
But the price tag is expensive. You saw the Padres had to give their 9th, 12th, and 13th rated prospects for Luis Arias, and he's a free agent at the end of the year. Now, I love the move.
Arias got 2 more years. Arias got 2 more years. Yeah,
I thought someone said he's a free agent at the end of the year.
He's not a free agent. No.
Well,
I wanted the Giants to go after him.
I wanted the Giants to go after him too, but go look on the list who's their 9th, 12th, and 13th prospects. I mean, that is kind of a lot.
Well, here's my problem with, and I know, Ned, you can't say certain things, and I respect that. I'll say it. I think the Giants have to make a decision. Farhan either has to play some of these guys or trade them, because they're getting older. Because Casey Schmidt's now 25. Okay, that's kind of old for a second-round pick who's tearing it up down at AAA. He's got averaging an RBI a game. I don't understand why you don't either see what you got in the farm, because you can't just keep recycling free agents every 1 to 2 years. It's not sustainable unless you're going to spend like the Dodgers. Because you're not going to be able to get the top guys unless you spend 300, 400, 500 million every off season, which it's not sustainable. So my thinking was the Giants had a perfect opportunity to do a reset last year when they fired Kapler. That was the time to move on from Farhan if you were going to move on. Because now, if you decide to move off of him after this year, you really got a mess. Because you just brought in Melvin with a 3-year deal. It just gets messy. I would have done a clean, just cut the ties, had a new GM come in, pick his manager, and start a whole new, fresh approach to, 5 years was plenty, in my opinion, when you only had one winning season.
How many years did you get in LA, Ned? 8?
I got 4 to begin.
But he won. He had winning seasons.
We won a division. We went to the LCS 2 other times. 3 out of the first 4 years we won divisions and went to and the team I inherited lost 91 games.
Right. So, but how many total years in LA?
I had 9 as a GM, and I had a
9.
contract that paid me for 10.
So, I mean, you had 9 years, but you had a very, very good record. We're talking about a guy who's now had 6 years.
LCSs.
He did have a 107-win season. Did you ever have a 107-win season?
No, I did not.
Yeah, well, see. So you're looking up.
I needed less wins to get to the LCS.
Yeah, but you never won 107. No. But, I mean, he won the 107, but it was really Brian's team. He added Gosman in a couple pieces. I don't want to take anything away, but it was the previous regime's kind of players. Other than that, it's been 5 really, losing seasons, humdrum seasons. The season ticket base is eroded. It makes me wonder when I see people on NBC Sports Bay Area, which is the Giants' flagship television station. Even Russo, who they know is independent, but they knew what he was going to say. I mean, I knew what he was going to say. I recorded it knowing that he was going to say it. I'm like, they're going to ask this guy what he thinks of the Giants. He's going to rip the crap out of the Giants because the Giants can't hit. They're not very good. And sure enough, he did, but I didn't think he was going to put it on Farhan. And then they put it out on their social media situation and all over the place. And I was like shocked by that because I'm like, wow, it's almost like they're making a play.
They doubled down.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it makes me wonder if the support internally for Farhan is beginning to erode when you look at how much money they spent this offseason and what they've actually gotten for it. Now, I liked Jorge Soler, but he hasn't hit. I like Jung-Hoo Lee, but he's not worth $19 million. I like Blake Snell, but he's been atrocious. I like Matt Chapman, but I agreed with Danny. They should have gone with Casey Schmidt. Casey Schmidt can hit 210 and 220 and play a pretty good third base too, and you save $60 million. So, I mean, you look at their moves outside of Jordan Hicks, which was a really nice move, and it's paying benefits, and maybe Robbie Ray. We'll see in the middle of the year. But there wasn't, the offseason hasn't been necessarily all that impressive when you consider how much money they spent. Only the Dodgers spent more. And I just kind of wonder, maybe there's an erosion internally among the Giants ownership group, who you know better than we do, Ned. Maybe there's some kind of erosion in the enthusiasm for Farhan based on what they spent and how his handpicked guys are doing. Maybe I'm wrong, but definitely Russo is more bottom line oriented than most of the media out here. And he's just like, hey, he should be gone. Or at least he shouldn't be extended.
Look at what the Dodgers signed, the 4 guys. I mean, Otani, Yamamoto, Glasnow they traded for, and they got Teoscar. Okay.
Teoscar's driving in runs in bunches, by the way.
Yes.
4 proven guys. I mean, you knew Yamamoto was going to be fine. Pitch fine. He pitched well in Japan. So to me, he's like adding another star. So you added 3
Russo, by the way, didn't like him. I saw him against the Padres. Didn't look good. He got cuffed around. Saw him the other day against the Mets. Wasn't he's supposed to be great. $325 million. I don't know if I see it. He was going in on Yamamoto. Hey,
I don't know. I mean, I respect the Dodgers because they knew what they wanted. They didn't waste time. They went out and got it. Okay, Farhan waits till the very end. Waits till the price drops. Gets the price, and then it's like, hey, look. You probably overpaid for Lee, but you went out and got him. I respect that. Go get him. You got the guy. He's I think he's going to be a really good ball player. But
3 hits tonight.
Yeah, just the difference is of waiting and waiting and waiting for you guys. I mean, we were all saying, why didn't they just go get Imanaga, the pitcher from Japan, who had better numbers in Japan than Yamamoto, and he only got like $60 million.
He's been great for the Cubs.
Like 3-4 years. What are you doing? I mean, you could have just went out and signed that guy for $60-80 million bucks. I mean, they said they were going to sign him the night before. All the reports were Imanaga signing with the Giants, and then all of a sudden we get the next day he signs with the Cubs. And I think it came down to he got cheap on him. He didn't want to give him that extra figure or year or whatever. But, he's the best pitcher right now in the National League, Imanaga, but the numbers, Giants passed on him.
Well, I mean, once again, if you draft and develop out of your own system at a better rate, you don't have to take these incredibly volatile and expensive international stabs. I mean, Ned, you guys got Puig for an unbelievable deal. When I look back, it was like 6 years, 42 million, or 7 years, 42 million. What an unbelievable steal that was. When you look at the money that's being thrown around, I like Jung Hoo, but $113 million. Boris got 6 years. And not only that, I think Jung might have an out where he can leave
after 4.
Yeah. So, it's like he's got he's
The
got
amount of
unbelievable
money is
control and huge money. And it's just, I'm not saying that, I can remember some of the Cuban players that the Dodgers signed there around Puig, and it wasn't, so Puig hit, let's say, but there was 3 or 4 other pretty big name guys that got pretty significant coin that didn't ever do anything. Do you remember a couple of those guys, Ned?
I was gone, but I was doing TV by then.
Yeah, but
there were a few guys.
There were a couple Cuban guys the Dodgers gave pretty huge money to, and they just didn't do anything. So it's risky.
They did a great job with the Houston outfielder that hits about 45 a year.
Yordan Alvarez.
Yeah.
They signed him and they traded him for a 7th inning reliever.
He makes the same as Jung Hoo. They both make the same. They both make 19 million a year. That's kind of my complaint with the Jung Hoo. No, but it's going to be interesting. This is going to be an interesting summer because it's like the Giants look really bad. It's funny how baseball is. When you can't hit, you look awful. When you can't score runs, you look like you're never going to win, and all's lost. But they're really only a couple of decent hitters away from being pretty damn good. I agree with you, Ned. I think the pitching, not only the guys. I don't know if you saw this kid Mason Black they promoted the other day, but he's real. And I just saw Wisenhunt struck out like 12 or 14, and his fastball changeup combination is ridiculously lethal. Same arm slot with the change. He's like mid-90s on the fastball, and he's pulling the string at like 81 on the changeup, and it's just ridiculous. He's getting off. He had 12 strikeouts at AAA the other day, I believe. He's coming. He's real. This kid Roop they have's got a killer curveball. They brought up this kid Randy Rodriguez this week. The guy throws 100 from the right side. They've got they've got pitching, and they're getting Ray back and Cobb back, and theoretically they might be able to put Hicks and Keaton Wynn, who also has nasty stuff, in their pen in front of Doval. So their pitching might save them.
Yes.
But if you can't score 4 runs, but like 3 times a month, I don't care what pitching you have. That's where they've been right now. I think they've scored like 4 or more, like 4 or 5 times in the last month.
Well, I got to get rolling after this, but I think that's the path. I think that's the quote.
Pitching.
The gamble is the pitching. They get the pitching. What you just laid out, that comes 80% of that comes to fruition. They're going to compete, and so I think that's really the path that they're going on, and that's what they're banking on. And I think it's not a bad way to go. They may have themselves a very, very good rotation, and some of that rotation may spill over into the later innings of games as relievers. So that's the play. That's what's going to happen for them to get in a wild card situation. I got to get going, but I appreciate
Ned, I know you got to run. Can you just give us 1 minute of the Sharks news today? How you felt about that?
Tremendous. We're very, very excited about it.
You guys signed Connor McDavid? What happened?
No, we have no. He's still playing for Edmonton.
They got the number 1 pick.
That's the number 1 pick in the draft. So,
wow.
Good draft, Rick Celebrini's kid.
Yes.
Who? When's the pick get used here? When's the draft?
Another 6 weeks.
So, and are the top players from America, Ned, or are they from Canada?
Well, he lived in Vancouver for a long time. He goes to BC or BU, and can't remember which one. I should probably know.
Boston University.
Yeah, and but he played for the Junior Sharks too. So he's got a connection to the Bay Area. So you've got. It was a historic day for the Sharks franchise. Everybody is really fired up about this, excited about it. When you rebuild, you got to go back to your point. You got to have patience. Toughest thing to do. And we've gone through a couple tough seasons, especially the last one. But it's a great day for the organization. And when you have a player like him and Will Smith, who is going to be a great player, a fourth pick in the draft a year ago, played against each other or played with in Massachusetts in the college ranks against each other. That's pretty good.
What's this kid's name again?
Celebrini. Italian kid.
Oh, it is Rick Celebrini's kid.
Yeah, it's Rick Celebrini's kid.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
He's a star.
And he's what is he, a forward?
Center,
yeah.
Center.
Yeah. He's a star.
Really?
He's 18 years old. I mean, he's got a way.
So what's the path? Is he WHL or IHL or where does he go?
Yeah, we'll see how camp goes. That's not up to me. Other people make those decisions, but there's a chance that people see him next year at the Shark Tank. We'll see how.
Really?
It goes.
Is there anybody that that we know that he reminds you of?
I haven't seen him except on video and on TV, so I'm probably the wrong guy to ask. Some people compare him to Jonathan Tays.
Yeah,
That's the Blackhawks.
He's got leadership to him. He's a young guy, but he's real. He is absolutely real.
All the scouts that I've heard talk about him say he's going to be a star, and that he'll bring the team together because of his off the ice persona as well.
Yeah, I mean it's a huge day for us today.
They needed it. Awesome. They really needed it. Yeah. I love that franchise though, and they've had nothing but first class and a lot of success, and they've done it the right way. And they've done it with an owner that Hasso Plattner's, living in Sweden, and he's right. He's out of the picture a lot of the times. Yeah. So I mean, it's So, hey Ned, thanks for the time, man, and always good to talk ball with you. I'm really happy for Sabes. If you see him, tell him congratulations from us, Danny, and
he just sent me a note a minute ago about the number 1 pick, because we were talking about it last night. So yeah, he's paying attention as usual.
There you go. Well, hey man, have a great night.
He's the best. I said it last night. I know 1,000 people. He's the best I know at what he does. Ain't nobody said, he's the best. So,
and he's still working with the Yankees and getting some enjoyment out of it. And I'm sure they're listening to him too.
He's
kind of ironic the Yankees are winning again.
He did it the right way.
Yeah.
Built the culture. These people came from all over the country for one day.
That's awesome.
Many people flew coast to coast to spend one day.
Speaks volumes.
At a table. Tells you all you need to know.
Yeah.
5 or 6 tables, Giants, put tables together. It was great. Mario Alioto, phenomenal job. Anyway, I'm going on and on. I'm trying to leave the show. I'm going to leave the show. Good night.
Thanks, Ned.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Take care.
Awesome.
The great Ned Colletti.
Yeah.
I love when we get together, guys, on this stuff, because it just, and I'm sorry if I'm dominating with too many questions, but I love sitting there peppering Ned with all kinds of Giants questions, and hopefully.
Oh yeah, man, it's great to hear his comments. And I know he's got to be careful with his relationship with the owners and all of that, and so I'll do the dirty work.
Yeah, I mean, he can't. I mean, and it's just in poor form to.
Yeah.
Right.
For him to, he should be out of there. He should be out of there. I kind of put him in a tough spot, but I felt like it was worth bringing up because I wanted to do that dog impression.
Yeah, that was good. There's a little bit of Ralph. It's little Ralph and Mad Dog in there.
That's all I want. One time. Once. Just once.
You should have dropped the Saltalamacchia in there.
Oh man,
Brian, what about Saltalamacchia? And you hear Sabes go, "Why, Ralph? Why? What? What do you think of Saltalamacchia?"
I was thinking, and we'd have to ask this of Ned at another time when he's not, short on time and having to catch a flight early in the morning. But I would love to know, man, would the Giants we saw Billy Martin come back to the Yankees. How many times? 3, 4? Steinbrenner fired him.
They fired him, promoted Bob Lemon. Later in that summer, they announced at Old Timers Day, as they're introducing Billy Martin, that he is former Yankee manager Billy Martin and manager of the 1982 New York Yankees, Billy Martin. Everybody's like, what? And yeah, they hired him and they announced it at Old Timers Day when they were introducing him that he was the future manager.
Yeah.
I mean, what a circus.
Now, to me, I don't know if he would do it, but I want somebody running the Giants that has proven track record of success. I don't want some if they moved off of Farhan, don't go get some guy that's up and coming. Yeah, up and coming in the game, pretty bright guy, but he's never done it. Give me somebody that's actually done it.
Yeah, go get Dave Dombrowski.
Yeah, come on, or even
go get Sabes. Go get Ned.
Yeah,
go get somebody who's actually done it, who's actually had success, who's
had success doing it.
Go get Rizzo out of Washington.
Exactly.
Go get somebody who's respected in the game and has rings, or at least ring.
Because I don't think Farhan has the what's the word I want to use? I just don't think it's in his personality to make bold decisions when they need to be made. I mean, you're going to need pretty soon to pivot and bring in a bat or two. I mean,
it's look at it this way, Danny. Take all the personalities out of it and just talk about your equation as what's your winning equation. Farhan, because he can't sign anybody and can't win any bids despite all the money the Giants franchise has, is reliant on the farm system kicking butt. If the farm system was really kicking butt, then it wouldn't matter that 7 free agents have told him to go fly a kite. But the reality is he needs those free agents because the farm system's not kicking butt, and so his equation doesn't work. If he had the farm system really cooking, it wouldn't even matter that Giancarlo Stanton doesn't want to come here, and guys want to stay in New York, and Harper didn't come. None of those things would matter if the Giants farm system were really cooking. He just doesn't have the farm system going, so they have to keep leaning on instant gratification free agent signings, and they can't sign anybody because they're not attractive enough to potential free agents, and they're not willing to overspend because he's so worried about the art of the deal and getting taken and winning. He's worried about building his resume, and he just is like, you know what? I won't make a bad deal. I just won't make any deal.
Exactly. And I think
he's just been very static. He's made a ton of nothing moves. And if you don't believe me, go look up the list. I saw the list of his moves. There are more nobody nothings coming and going than any general manager in the history of baseball.
Right. And we said it when they signed him this offseason. Who were the two guys, Eric Hummel, Cooper Hummel, and TJ Hopkins. I said,
TJ Hopkins. I bought a TJ Hopkins jersey. I had to return it.
Yeah. I said, what's the over-under before these guys are out of town?
I know. It's almost like laughable. It's like he almost is like, I traded for somebody today. And then he says, it's almost like he's telling the fans, but don't get too excited because I may trade that guy tomorrow for a reliever that I'm going to release in a month. You know what I mean? It's just
I don't understand the mindset of
the marketing's awful.
Picking up guys for what? I mean,
here's another great point, Dan.
I mean, how about going for Slater and Yaz super early in the offseason?
Yes.
Yeah. They're corner outfielders that are totally replaceable in 19 different ways. You could sign veterans, you could go young guys, you could trade for prospects. There's 15, 16 different ways to replace corner outfielder marginal bats like Yaz and Yastrzemski. Instead, they re-signed them in November like it was pivotal.
Yeah.
I mean, there were better signings. There were guys on the street in March that were better than Yaz
Yes.
and Slater. So why did those guys sign? Why did Farhan sign those guys in November and clog up his roster with these nothing nobodies?
Look
And
at
here's
the
a
year Wade.
perfect example, perfect comparison. Sabian had the balls to trade Matt Williams. This is cryptic trader. I saw that in the chat earlier. Great point. Sabian had the balls to trade Matt Williams. Farhan doesn't have the balls to get rid of Slater.
I mean,
That's the perfect example.
How about
right?
this? How about this? You could have
Maybe Farhan will have a speech, and instead of saying "I am not an idiot," he will say "I am an idiot." The opposite. Maybe the opposite of saying "I am an idiot." I am an idiot.
Yeah, Wade almost has a on base percentage of like 485, something like that. It's insane. He's hitting great. Why wouldn't you have gone? How about just if you wanted to have a little bit more flexibility in a bat? How about bringing Brandon Belt back, put him at first, and put Wade out there instead of Yaz? I mean, at least
show that you actually give a damn about winning. I mean, you're just going to sit there and go with these donkeys forever. I mean, not only that, it's one thing to have Slater on the team. These jokers are leading him off. When he's playing, he's like leading off. Like, what is this guy? Is he Vince Coleman? He's Ricky Henderson. I mean, the guy's hitting 105. You're putting him in the leadoff spot. I mean,
it's bizarre, and I don't think
that's on Melvin, I guess, but still,
I don't think and I'm
not
like
saying the Soler move. But
I like the Soler move.
People tell me this week that, I wanted Chapman. You wanted Chapman and Snell. No, I didn't want Chapman and Snell. I sat here with Danny and Eric with Casey Schmidt for 90 minutes in the offseason saying, I hope they don't sign Chapman, and I hope they give you third base. We were all rooting for that. So don't tell me I wanted Chapman. And then the people want to say, well, you wanted Snell. What I wanted is as a Giant team that is absolutely rolling in cash to spend some of it, whether it was on him or Montgomery or whatever. I mean, I'm not. It wasn't like I sat there and said, we got to get Snell. I'm not the big Blake Snell fan. I just wanted them to spend a little money, but I didn't want them to spend it on Chapman.
Right.
Why? Because Chapman hasn't hit 250 in like 5 freaking years. And now he's hitting 220, and he's got an awesome glove. But guess what?
207 or something.
207? What's Casey Schmidt hitting in the minors? So you tell me Casey Schmidt would not be hitting 207 if he was up. You think he would?
He's close to 280, if not above.
That was my whole argument, Larry.
All saved $60 million.
All off season is, look, I knew Matt Chapman couldn't hit. I said it in the offseason. I put it out there in January in a tweet, and I said, Matt Chapman is not, just what you said, has not hit 250 in 5 years. He's declining, and you can't tell me that Casey Schmidt
he's going to hit 30 bombs. What?
Yeah.
He's not hitting 30 bombs.
Yeah. You can't tell me that Casey Schmidt couldn't come up here and hit 230, at least what Chapman's going to do, and play as good of defense as Chapman does. I mean, if you watch Casey Schmidt, we've got guys in here and we've played some highlights of Casey Schmidt this year in Sacramento, and we've had a few guys that go to the games. He's making some phenomenal plays already at third base. The guy was compared to Matt Chapman.
But see, you're not going to get anything for him unless he comes up to the big leagues and has some success, and he's not going to do that because he's blocked now by Chapman, and Chapman's contract's immovable.
Well, it's a terrible contract because he can opt in. He's got control. And the way the season is going, there's no way he's going to opt out. If he opts out, he's likely to get the same type of treatment that some of these guys got and got squeezed out of the game this year.
Yeah.
Brandon Belt is sitting at home, and Brandon Belt, I don't know what he hit last year, but his OPS was close to 800.
Well, and Brandon Belt, what a mysterious career ending. He seemingly was like at the very end, like the Giants, like personality, most popular player, beloved.
Yeah.
And yet here they are, and you're right. They're scoring 2 freaking runs a game. Tonight they scored 5 at Coors Field. Wow. But it was based on dribblers and nothingness. They're not hitting the ball at all. Their corner outfield sucks. And it's like you're sitting there, you could sign a guy like Belt, put him at first and take Wade and put him in an outfield corner and improve your lineup and maybe score 5 or 6 runs and win a few games. Nah. Why do that?
Look at Belt's numbers.
Don't do that.
Look at Belt's numbers last year.
Where's Farhan's urgency to change the mix here? This is the season started at the end of March. It's now the second week in May. It's time. I mean, the Padres felt the urgency to add, pretty damn good hitter. Where's the Giants can't hit at all? Where are the Giants in runs scored in baseball right now, Eric?
Ooh, yeah, it's not good. I'll bring it up.
I mean, it's bad. I mean, it's like, so, I mean, what happened when the Giants come to town? It's bye-bye, baby. And they have the pitching. Ned said it. The defense is decent, even though it's shown some failings. But, I mean, they got to score. You got to be able to score 5 runs. You can't, I mean, especially now they dug themselves a hole and the Brewers are good and the Phillies are good and some of these teams are good. They're going to have a hard time making the playoffs. I mean, if they don't get some kind of streak going, and they're not getting a streak going, you streak when you score runs. And they gotta figure out a way to get a little bit more offense, or this is just another year flushed down the toilet. Where are they in runs scored?
They 137.
137. Where's that rank though?
Okay,
if you just go stats,
Colorado.
Just go to the stats up there, Eric. Right up top there.
Just go stats and then
hit team,
and then it'll say
up
runs.
Top, teams. Top. No, to the right. Teams.
Up
right
top.
There.
Where are you at? Wait.
Right there, right? Stats, teams, right next to stats.
Yeah, that's what I hit.
And then no.
No.
Go back to stats. Go back.
Go back.
Hit stats and then hit teams. Right over here. Right here. Right. There you go. Team and then runs.
And then hit runs. And then look with it.
Keep scrolling.
Oh, gotcha.
And then
is there any more?
Well, no, just click any of them and then go to the top and you can go to runs scored. So click any of these categories.
Yeah, hit hits or just hit
any category at all. And then it will give you all the options up top.
Man, what the heck? Why isn't it hyperlinked? Let me just
if you just hit
hit the complete leaders.
There.
Okay, so now go over to runs and just click on that right there where it says runs. And then
they'll go from the descending here. Where are they at? They're 23rd.
23rd in runs scored. 23rd. How many teams are there in baseball? 30?
30.
So they're in the bottom third of the league in runs scored.
And
they need more freaking offense. And they let Arias go to the Padres. Yeah. And it's like Dodgers didn't just all this talk about the Otani, and the Giants are just paralyzed because they couldn't get Otani. They should have gone for Teoscar Hernandez.
Yep.
Teoscar Hernandez is going to drive in like 135 runs this year.
Yep. And Will Smith is going to have a great year too. But I want to look.
What did Teoscar Hernandez even make? He didn't even make that much.
It's like
I think it's a 1-year deal for like what? 15 or
something like that.
I mean, so it's like LA not only makes big moves, but then they also make the small moves that are better. Yeah. I mean, you needed Teoscar Hernandez and you committed 2 outfield spots to Slater and Yaz when there was tons of evidence that those guys sucked. And so it's like, what are you doing, Farhan? It's like, sometimes, I want to sit there and be like, Farhan's really smart, but is he? I mean, this guy is the smartest guy in the room. I'm sorry, man. I'm not seeing it.
Let me bring up a point here. I want to bring up this point. Look at the 23 season there highlighted. And I'm not saying Brandon Belt's the answer to the Giants' problems.
He's out there. He's available. Yes. And why not?
Look at his numbers last year. He hit 254. He had 19 home runs. Only 300.
What was his on base? His on base, I'm sure, was probably 369 on base. Where would 369 rank currently on the Giants? It's probably like
second behind Wade.
Yep.
Second behind Wade.
He would have the second best on base percentage on the Giants right now if he does what he did last year.
Look at his OPS.
And they supposedly love the guy, and he's a good defender.
858, and he had a 136 OPS plus. He's out of the game. So my point on this is this, guys.
Could have had Tommy Pham. He was out there.
Matt Chapman is not going to opt out.
Of course
because
not.
If he opts out, he's going to get the Brandon Belt treatment, because Brandon Belt is a good defensive first baseman. We know Chapman can play defense, but nobody's going to sign him. If he opts out,
he's not opting out. We shouldn't even don't even
$5 million a year. Yeah, he's not opting out.
Not opting out. Jung's not opting out. He's not opting out. Nobody's opting out. You know,
this is why I'm ticked off, because now we're never going to get. So who plays short, Luciano or Schmidt? Why not? You know, if you didn't have Chapman, you're blocking Casey Schmidt from his best position. He's a Gold Glove caliber third baseman. You drafted him in the second round, and now you're saying
I can't. It makes my skin crawl when I see these idiot Giants fans on X say he had his shot.
No,
really, he had his shot. Well, what would you call what Yaz is getting now?
Yeah,
19 shots.
I know.
I mean, my goodness.
And I always laugh at these people. The guy was a rookie. You know, Matt Williams.
And not only that, he played. Name me the third baseman that you can remember in all your years. I've been watching baseball since 1975. I can't think of one hot shot third baseman that ever was promoted to the big leagues, asked to play out of position at shortstop, given a smattering of games, and then just deemed no, not good. I mean, it's like, come on, seriously. And you got rid of him for a guy who's the greatest defensive third baseman of all time, but is going to he's got a couple real identifiable flaws, and he's going to wind up hitting 215.
He is. This is what I tell people. His ceiling's 240. His floor's 200. At this stage of his career, he's going to be closer to his floor. It's just, and it's frustrating to me because I saw it in the offseason. I was like, please, no, don't. And because we all knew that Chapman was going to be a Giant. The moment that Melvin was named manager, and that isn't it interesting that Chapman had no other offers? Was Farhan bidding against himself with Boris?
Who was bidding on Jung? Who went to 19? Why did he have to go to 19 million for Jung? Now you think he's going to win a batting title, but I mean, literally within like 72 hours, he's from 72 hours ago, he's hitting 248.
I do think he wins a batting title in sometime in his career. I think he's got that. He's just adjusting right now. I think he gets better.
Well, but here's the thing:
he is overpaid.
He's overpaid. He's crushing the ball right into the shift, because the baseball in 2024 is, once they get the book on you, they just put a defender right where you hit the ball. I've seen him hit the ball on the screws like 9 times in the last 10 days, and they're always right at somebody, because it's like, he hits. Maybe he's predictable as far as his spray chart. I don't know. But I'll say this: he plays the hell out of center field, and he definitely knows. He's got a really good batting eye, and I like him as a guy. I just don't like him at $19 million, and I don't like him as the big offseason acquisition. If he had been, I think a more realistic thing would have been like 3 years, $40 million, 3 years, $50 million, something like that.
Yeah, I think he was going to go to the Padres at that point. I think the Padres were going to sign him to a similar deal, probably around $80 million. And
it's just a dramatic overpay. I mean, when you really think about it, it's a dramatic overpay unless he hits about 285, 290. If he hits 285, 290, then you can live with the fact that he's going to hit 9 home runs and steal about 12 bases.
Right.
I mean, that's not. I mean, think about it. I mean, that's not, in a power speed game that 9 home runs and 12 stolen bases. You can't hit 248 and be worth 19 million. You have to hit 285.
I think he will.
We'll see if he can.
I think he ends up at 275 sometime at some point by the end of the season. I think he's around 275 plus.
I mean, he's not their problem. He's a good baseball player, and he's kind of fun to watch. And he's definitely,
I think their biggest problem.
He's got some real ignition traits.
Chapman and Soler. those two guys. I'm not.
Well,
as
I'm not worried about Soler.
I'm not
The
as
thing is,
much either.
Soler's he's a hot weather guy. When the weather warms up, he's going to start parking homers in bunches, and I'm not that concerned about Soler. He's never going to be a high average guy. He's always going to be kind of a low average.
Yeah, he's a
But I'm not
240
worried
guy.
about him. I'm worried just about the fact that they're putting out there every day a lineup. I mean, now with the injuries, and you got sometimes you're going with Murphy and Reitz, and I mean your bottom of the lineup is really, it just falls off the table.
There's three guys that I wish they would move off of, and they're not gonna. I know they're not going to move off of at least one of them, and that's Chapman. But he's one of the guys that
there's no way to move off of him.
Yeah, unless you somehow somebody gets hurt, a contender loses their third baseman, and you'd say, okay, you know what? We'll pay half of his contract if he opts in next year, and we'll take care of half the salary next year. You're on the hook for the rest of this year and year 3. But that's and you got to hope something like that happens, because you're stuck with him. But the other two guys they have to move off of is Yaz Slater combination right field and Ahmed. Ahmed needs to be the backup defensive late inning guy. That's it. He's not.
That was the plan. The plan was to go with Luciano and go with Ahmed late in games. And Luciano showed up in spring training. He didn't look like he could hit.
Well, he got hurt, and then he started getting hot at the end.
Right. How's he doing now?
What's he doing in sack, Eric? He's hitting about 290-ish, 280. He's only got one home run. I know that, but
I don't think he's even at 280 right now. I think.
Did a video the other day how they ought to go after Arias and then move Tyro to short.
I said that during the offseason.
They're not getting any offense at all out of their infield.
No, Luciano today had 2 hits, so he's up to 282.
282.
So he's probably going to be like a 230 hitter, and it's probably about a 50-point difference. He's probably going to be like a 230 hitter in the big leagues. But I mean, you got to ask yourself, what are you? Are you developing your next young core, or are you, desperate to, for some kind of contention? I mean, they're just not ready. Guys like that are not ready. If they went with the young guys, they wouldn't have been ready to contend. But then going with this kind of middling old guys, and just guys who are like defensive specialists, you're not really kicking the can down the road. You're not really developing your story or your franchise in any way. There's no advantageous position to playing the stopgap veteran.
Let me ask you this, Larry. If the thing goes the way we think it's going to go, and the season ends, they don't make the playoffs, they just miss out, and Chapman opts back in, do you eat that contract and just say, you know what, we're going to bring up Casey, or do the Giants actually bring it back?
No, because they don't know that Casey's going to be better. If you thought that Casey was Arenado, if you thought that Casey was going to be quite a bit better, then you know what? You swallow hard, you make a decision, and you get the better guy up there. But there's a chance that Casey's going to do the same thing. It's just for not the money, and then you will have wasted the money.
Yeah.
And you had the same production. Then what are people going to say if Casey hits 210? Then all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a second. You gave Chapman all the money, then he hit 210, then you got rid of him, and now you got another guy hitting 210. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's easy decisions. He hits the ball hard. He plays a great third base. I think you just have to strengthen the offense around him more than anything. But to me, that's it. I mean, if I were the Giants, the big fish is Pete Alonso. He's a presence. He would put butts in the seats. He would sell tickets. He would create excitement. I don't know that you can have a bad Pete Alonso trade or Pete Alonso signing as far as what you're paying him, because I think he would put butts in the seats, and he's a big power hitting guy that people would want to come see.
I think he, if the Mets were smart, they would do. Who's the guy that got traded from? Was it the Yankees years ago and then signed back with him in free agency?
Chapman.
Gleyber Torres.
It was Chapman.
Aroldis
Chapman. He got traded to the Cubs, won the World Series, and went back to the Yankees the next year.
They traded, but it wasn't a Gleyber Torres. Didn't they trade Gleyber? They traded Gleyber Torres. Yeah, they traded Gleyber Torres, who was originally a Yankee, for Chapman, and then they re-signed Chapman, and then they reacquired Torres. Is that right?
No, I think
they got Torres from the Cubs.
Yeah, Torres
for
was
Chapman, and then once Chapman won his World Series, the next year he signed a free agent contract.
That's right. That's right.
See,
Chapman,
I think
Torres was with the was with the Cubs.
Yeah,
I
think
they
stole Gleyber Torres.
I think the Mets can have the conversation with Alonso. Say, hey, look, we want you back next year. We want you this year, but we could get a couple of guys for prospects for you that will make our club better next year. We're going to pay you. They can have that conversation with Alonso. He's their property.
He's an Eastern guy. There's
he's not going to sign with the Giants in free agency.
Well, if you overpaid enough, maybe he would.
I don't think so. I think he's going to be a Met, and I think the owner at the Mets is going to pay him. So I would, have that conversation.
Why all the trade rumors then?
Well, they're going to trade him because they're not going to get anything, but I think they'll want him back. That's what I'm saying, is go ahead and have the conversation with Pete and say, look, we want you back. We want you to be a Met for life, but if you would just go somewhere for a few months, we'll get some prospects for you that we can have, a better club when you come back. So,
the Giants just need to find a couple bats. They need to find a couple guys who can hit. And most likely you're going to be able to find those spots in the outfield. If
I'm the GM,
I'll tell you the guy that I like. I like Andrew Vaughn.
I like Vaughn too with the White Sox. Yeah. But
he hasn't started well. He's having a bad year.
I'm going to shop Chapman and say, I'll do whatever I can. I'll shop him and say, I got to pay, that salary down to somebody that wants a Gold Glove third baseman. I don't know who that is. I don't know. It's got to be a contender.
The only thing about that, Danny, think about that kind of a maneuver. That's an admission of mistake. Farhan is not in the mode to say, I made a mistake. I made a mistake, and now I'm going to pay it off to make it go away. It's like that's real obvious, and everybody's going to see that. And everybody's going to be like, oh, he made a mistake, and he's going to wear it.
He did it with DeSclafani and Haniger.
He did. He found a taker for those guys.
And he got.
But how many of those deals can you make before the ownership starts to say, well, what the hell? Where you're signing these big money free agents, and then we're getting rid of them at a loss, just a year later, 2 years later, for guys who also make lots of money. It's just, it's like Farhan has created as many bad contracts as he ever inherited.
Oh, exactly. He's the La Stella contract, the
Haniger,
the DeSclafani, all these 3-year deals.
Manaya,
Stripling,
Wood.
Yeah, we're talking about close to $100 million of garbage.
Right. And I think the one thing that I believe is that the Sacramento River Cats offense is more entertaining than the Giants. If you put
the A's definitely is. The A's got that
third
kid
in home runs.
Rooker from Minnesota. He's a player of the month.
Yeah, and they're third in majors in home runs. The A's are third.
With a nothing payroll.
Yeah. I think if Sable's down back in the minors, they're more top to bottom. I think they're a better entertaining lineup that will score more runs than the Giants lineup. And the other thing I would say is this.
They just seem outgunned in Philly, by the way. Watching those games, it was like there's no way they're beating Philly. Like if they played Philly 10 times, they'd lose like 9.
Of course. Yes. There was no way. And let me ask you this, because do you think Farhan is hesitant to bring up Schmidt, Ramos, Matos, and Luciano for fear that they would take off? The Giants would just start playing well, and all of a sudden it's like, dang, I just signed Chapman and Yaz and Slater. I threw out.
Well, but first you got to play well. Then you can worry about how it looks when you play well.
Yeah.
I mean, if he really thinks like that, then he really does need to be fired.
I don't know what
I can't promote good young players in my farm system. Why? Because I made signings that it will be exacerbated that my signings were unwise. I mean, it's like, do what you got to do to put talent on the field any way you got to do it, and then deal with the repercussions, at that point, right? I mean, come on.
Right.
I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be, I have a feeling
They need a couple bats. I mean, I don't know who's out there. I mean, what could they get? Arias was out there. He's not. There was talk the polar bear was out there. I mean, they need a couple of hitters. If they get a couple of bats with the arm depth that they have, the guys they got coming back, the young guys who look like they're about ready to graduate to the system, like Black and Wisenhunt. I mean, Black looks like a guy they could put in their rotation. Wisenhunt does as well. So,
Yeah.
And Harrison looked great tonight. And then obviously you've got a bunch of other guys. So they have great rotation depth. They got to have a couple, that Randy Rodriguez. Did you guys see Randy Rodriguez throw 100 miles an hour earlier? That guy, that's ridiculous. That guy's just got an absolute gun. So they've got some guys. I mean, and their pen could be really, really dirty if they do, have these Robbie Ray, Alex Cobb guys jump into the rotation in the middle of the year. So they're really just, can they find a couple of bats? And I don't know. I mean, it seems very elusive. And also, I don't even know. It's not only is it elusive for them to find these outfield bats, they don't really seem like they're interested in it.
They're happy. They're happy with the Aspen.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, nobody's going to break up our tea party. And it's like, you suck. You can't score any runs. It's boring as shit. Go get some guys who can hit. But they don't, there's not, forget urgency. It doesn't even seem like it dawns on them that that's what they need.
Here, hold on. Let me find this.
I'm looking at the stats of guys with batting.
Is there any other bats out there that are going to be traded in the middle of the year?
I'm looking at some of these and seeing that all the guys that are actually producing are on playoff caliber teams for the most part. I don't see anybody out there, that is on a non-contending team that has any production. I mean,
this tweet came out earlier today per Susan Slusser. Giants slow start, hugely disappointing to Farhan Zaidi. I don't necessarily see any immediate moves on the horizon, but I think we're getting to a point where the sample sizes start being more meaningful. So there you go. No,
I mean, what is he, a pollster? Well, with 19 precincts weighing in, we're starting to get to our relative point of relative need.
I take it with a grain of salt because there's a lot of things Farhan says doesn't usually pan out.
Let me give you an idea. How about Dylan Carlson? Dylan Carlson's good buddies with Logan Webb. Logan Webb is going to be here for a while. Dylan Carlson is a good young outfielder. He hasn't quite hit his stride with the Cardinals. He's from Elk Grove. He checks a lot of boxes. You could probably get him. He's not that, would not be unattainable. It's a good young left-handed hitting outfielder that could be a cornerstone guy for you for a few years. I mean, I like to see them instead of, it's like the Giants. There's like two stores in the Giants world, Neiman Marcus and the dollar store. We must go get the most expensive guy. If you had gotten Teoscar Hernandez instead of spending so much fascination on Otani, you'd be significantly better right now. But you didn't go after Teoscar Hernandez. You let the Dodgers get both those guys, and so you look really, really bad. But it's like they shot. It's like, we will go for Otani. We want Judge. We want Harper. And then all of a sudden it's like TJ Hopkins. And it's
here's
like the dollar store guys. It's like they shop at Neiman Marcus for these high price guys, and then they try to fill in at the dollar store.
here's
How
a
about
guy I
just get
threw
more
out.
middle of the road?
Here's a guy I threw out that I think could be had. We know that Miami's looking to sell because they just got rid of Arias. How about go get Jazz Chisholm and stick him at second base and move Estrada over to short if you're not going to bring up and see what Luciano can do. Chisholm
Play him in right field.
Or you could put him in right field. Exactly. He's fast.
He's electric.
He's electric. You can put him at leadoff and put Lee batting second more so that Lee gets him
lean
hit and
into
run
that
going.
speed. Yeah, I mean, get a
hit and
little bit
run
more
going.
athleticism.
Gosh, just do something. This team is it's like, hey, you know what? They are slow, but they can't hit either.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
They lack power, but they're slow.
It's like there's nothing good about this team offensively. Nothing.
Well, no, Wade. Wade's been really good.
Wade is their all-star right now.
Bailey was really good before he had the concussion. Tyro is gonna get it going.
Yeah, Tyro's fine.
I think Ahmed is exactly what I thought Ahmed would be.
Yep.
Chapman's exactly what I thought Chapman would be.
Yep.
Jung-Hoo has been better defensively and not as good offensively as I thought he would be. Yaz is more the same. Slater and who else? What's the other outfielder that we're missing? Who's the other outfielder that plays a lot?
Conforto.
Yeah, Conforto's actually been pretty good.
Yeah,
Conforto's been pretty good.
Conforto's hitting right where I expect him to hit. He's in the mid 250s.
They don't need a ton. They don't need a ton, but what they need is they need at least two good bats. One could be a speed guy or an average guy like a Jazz Chisholm. I was thinking Arias. The other's got to be kind of more of a powerful presence, like a polar bear. But maybe there's somebody else that you could throw in there. But they just need a couple of more real decent offensive players. If they got a couple more offensive players, they would
shortstop and you're probably not going to change third base, so you're stuck with Chapman. But you can change right field and shortstop right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's and the outfield to me, it's like you have Yaz and Slater. You can do better than Yaz and Slater, and should. And the other frustrating thing is Wilmer Flores is one of their best hitters. They can't seem to get him on the field at all. That's kind of a weird one.
He's having a rough go of it right now. He's only hitting in the 220s, isn't he? Let me look at his average.
He's just not getting enough ABs. I mean, he was swinging the bat really well earlier this year. I mean, he absolutely crushed in spring training. So I don't know. I mean, it's just that they need a couple of more bats. If they get a couple more bats, they'll start to win some of these games. And maybe, that the one thing I would love to know is, do they have anybody offensively internally? Do they believe in Ramos? Do they believe in Matos? Do they believe in Hunter Bishop? Is there anybody raking in the Giants AAA or AA? Anybody? Bueller?
AA, nobody. There's nobody raking in.
Nobody raking. Is there anybody raking at AAA?
Mostly Ramos and Schmidt.
What's Ramos?
Ramos and Schmidt.
But they're not hitting over 300. They're hitting
close.
But they're raking in that they're hitting a lot of extra base hits, a lot of home runs.
Yes.
And Schmidt has a lot of RBIs. He had in his first 30 games, he had 30 RBIs. That tells you he's getting key hits with runners in scoring position. That's the one thing that Chapman is not doing, or Soler. They're not getting hits because they don't make contact. And if they do make contact, I don't know.
They just, I've seen this many, many times. These guys don't look good, but everybody's just trying to do too much because there's not enough there. When there's not enough offense, guys try to go outside of what they can do. When there's lots of offense, guys stay within themselves and they feel like more guys are pulling on the rope in the same direction. and all of a sudden it's like everything starts to click. I mean, you've seen it before. I mentioned it earlier to Ned Colletti. I mean, Giants in 2002, they had a bunch of good offensive players, but they needed one more piece. They added Kenny Lofton. Everybody relaxed, and they went from scoring 4 runs to 6 runs, and they went to the World Series and almost won it. That's what the Giants need. They need, maybe it's Jazz Chisholm, and maybe it's a Dylan Carlson. Maybe it's somebody who's a little bit more of an offensive presence and Jazz Chisholm, but they're a couple of offensive players away. And right now it's just like Slater, Yaz, Ahmed, because he's getting too many at bats. Ahmed is a defensive replacement.
Yeah, that's what he is. Hey, Eric, can you move that? Get rid of that.
No, I
ad
can't move that ad. It will just come up with another one.
Oh, okay.
But here we go. This is what we got. You got Elliot Ramos batting 296.
What's his OPS?
OPS is
950. Slide it.
I got to come down here. 953.
Jeez.
Schmidt batting 278. He's got 5 home runs, 30 RBIs.
Okay.
319 on base. He's not really taking too many walks. 771. Look at Brett Wisely, though. This guy's got 4 home runs, batting 333 with an on base of 429.
OPS.
Brett freaking Wisely's ripping.
Brett Wisely.
Who else they got? Anybody else?
Right, and then
Matos is struggling.
He's batting 211, only 2 home runs, not taking any walks.
The fact that he bulked up in the offseason was probably a really bad decision.
And here's Luciano, batting 282, but with only 1. This guy's supposed to be your power guy. He's only got 1 home run right now. He's taking walks. He's got a 412 on base.
412 on base?
Yeah.
How many walks does he have? 25?
Let's see.
Yeah, 25.
Yep.
That's a
25.
lot of walks.
That's a lot of walks.
That's good.
Anything over 400 on base is terrific. I mean,
but
to
you
me,
like to see that power, though.
350, anything 350 plus on base is very good.
Ramos and Schmidt are definitely doing something right now.
I'll tell you what. If this group is not, if we don't either see this group or we do and they don't perform and they can't cut it, it's going to be a long 5 years. You're talking. You're waiting for your next batch of prospects that was just in this last draft, because there's the cupboard's empty. There's not much at Double-A.
The Double-A ain't producing.
I don't know what happened to Von Brown. He just fell off the.
He ain't doing nothing. He's not even batting 100.
It's really hard to make it to the big leagues. There's guys that kick butt in the Cal League. There's guys who kick butt in the Eastern League, and they just fall short.
Too.
They
Von
just fall short.
He's like 25 already. So it's this is going to be. I think they're in big trouble if they don't see what these guys can do, because you can't just keep prospects down forever. You either have to make the move to decision to trade them or bring them up. I've said it this way: pick a doggone lane and go in it. Stop driving in the middle of the lane.
They can't even, when you can't say rebuild, you can't do it. They can't even say it. They can't even acknowledge that they should or are rebuilding. It's when you can't say, when you don't have the confidence in your rebuild enough to say we're rebuilding, it's not good.
Larry,
and that's kind of where they're at.
I put a poll out there the other day talking about what people think the status of the Giants are. Are they rebuilding? Are they rebuilt? Or have no freaking idea? And right now it seemed, and the majority over 80 or close to 80% said have no freaking idea. We don't know the status of what the team is right now. Now, if I'm not mistaken, when Farhan was first hired, wasn't he the guy that's supposed to revamp the entire farm system? That's where the concentration is going to be. We're going to get these guys on the farm. Isn't that what he was hired for?
Well, I mean, this is it's so funny because it's like I listen to I watch you guys like with Bora, and he'll be like super into who's the gigantic first baseman they drafted.
Oh,
Bryce
Bryce
Eldridge.
Eldridge.
He's doing nothing.
And it's like the Giants haven't, outside of Pablo and Posey and Panic and a couple, there's very few. Their hit rate on offensive players in the last 30 years is so bad that to then sit there and talk about Eldridge or any of their guys in the minors now, like they're like,
Yep.
oh, and a year from now when Eldridge is up, it's like, what? No, we cannot make that assumption because they just haven't had that kind of track record. So,
Correct.
that's why it's like, we had that discussion. Hey, would you trade him for Polar Bear? I'm like, hell yes.
Yeah.
And you guys were like, no. And I think Bora was like, no. Well, you're assuming the guy's going to be good.
Yeah.
Giants, the reality is Giants offensive prospects
have not panned
peter
out
and always evaporate by the time they get to AAA. So it's very, very, very rare. I mean, which makes the fact that Bobby Evans traded Brian Reynolds all the worse, because it's like you literally developed like 3 guys in your entire tenure and you traded one of them to the Pirates for nothing, for Andrew McCutchen, at the very end.
Yeah, here's what I wish I would have remembered to ask Ned this question. There's no cap when it comes to hiring guys away for minor league directors or whatever. And I know it has to be a promotion to move somebody, to talk to somebody else. But can't you make a director of the farm club? You can make him an assistant GM with the responsibility of running the farm, and just like,
why? Who are you trying to poach?
I'm going whoever's successful. I don't know who those players are, but the Orioles have success. Other organizations seem to produce minor leaguer after minor leaguer. Go get some of those guys and triple their salaries, and just say, you know what, come over to here.
No, I know. I've been talking about this for a long time. It's like, if you're not getting it done, you know what the amazing thing is there's this remarkable loyalty in baseball that guys have to organizations and to, people that are their superiors. Like, like the Twins had a number of really good personnel guys for years. This guy, Mike Ratcliffe, is considered one of the best. And it's like, nobody can get these guys. I mean, the Yankees have all the money in the world. And they know this guy Ratcliffe was a great scout. Why couldn't they get him away from the Twins? Well, I don't know. I mean, that's a great question. But it's just, it's some teams, I mean, have done an incredible job of minor league development. And if you really look at it, the Giants have not done that great in minor league development, but in their one stretch in the last 20 years where they got into a great run, where in like a 5-year period, they added Kane, Lincecum, Bumgarner, Posey, Pablo, Belt, it was basically like a 5-6 year run in there.
Wilson, Romo.
Yeah. I mean, lots of homegrown guys, Joe Panic. They obviously,
Crawford,
that was what those homegrown Giants were what fueled their 3 World Series titles.
Absolutely.
They hit on 4 first-round draft picks in a row. It was Lincecum, Mad Bum, Posey, and unfortunately it was Wheeler. The guys
moved Wheeler, but I mean, they shouldn't have. That was just maybe the dumbest trade. I mean, I'll give Sabian credit for 2002. The dumbest trade Sabian ever made was that trade, and it wasn't just because it's 2020 hindsight. It was because Buster Posey was done for the year. You were winning nothing.
Well, they thought they were coming off
they won the 2010 World Series. They were trying to defend the World Series title, but I mean, anybody could see that the key figure was Buster Posey, and Buster Posey at that point was already done for the year. They should have tucked tail, and but they felt such pressure to try to contend for a World Series that they made a really bad trade for Beltran. Beltran broke his hand and and hurt his hand early and just never made any kind of impact. And Wheeler had everything. Wheeler had everything you wanted back then. He had real thin chest, but broad shoulders, long arms, long legs, all kinds of stuff. And to move him for Beltran at that point, man. I mean, I know Beltran's a Hall of Famer, but still.
Did Beltran? Did he leave in free agency, or did he?
Yeah, he walked at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's right.
Went to Houston, right?
He just wasn't a fit.
Wait, did he go to Houston? Yeah, he went.
No, I think he had already been in Houston.
I thought he finished in Houston.
No,
Maybe he went back to New York.
Didn't he? Wasn't he there in Houston in like 2007 or something like that? I mean, look at Beltran.
He was there when they won that first World Series, right? In 2015. Is that what it was?
Wasn't he there? I thought he was there when they lost to the White Sox in 2005. No, maybe not. Maybe but Beltran was there in Houston, I thought, before he came to the Giants.
I got it right.
No, it was after. I think it was after.
I got it right here. I'll pull him up.
Really? I thought Beltran was in Houston, and then he
went to the Giants in 2011.
Well, he had multiple stints with Houston.
He went to St. Louis.
That's right.
Went to St. Louis right
then
there.
Then back to New York.
But where was he before the Giants?
He was with the Mets.
But before the Mets?
Houston.
There it was. That's
Houston.
What it was.
Yeah.
Kansas
and he was
City.
Awesome. He's an incredible talent, but it just wasn't a fit with the Giants. And they gave away a really good prospect.
He finished in 2017 with Houston with that World Series.
And he was awesome. He was amazing.
In 2012, he went to St. Louis. Had a pretty good year.
That was the garbage can year, 2017.
2012, he went to the. Then in 13, didn't the Cardinals win it in 13?
Yeah, with the third baseman who went off.
Oh yeah, the
David
kid
Freese.
David Freese, yeah.
Oh, Freese.
Man, did Texas blow that? They were just waiting for Bochy to win their first World Series. Well, guys, I don't know. I think you can only beat a dead horse so long, right? I mean, it's hard to just talk about the Giants, what they could be doing, should be doing. They got Farhan. They're not going to do anything.
That's the problem. That's the common denominator.
They're not going to do anything.
What's the slogan again?
Nothing like it.
Nothing like it. Nothing. There's nothing like it.
Nothing. I thought it was nothing to like.
No, there's nothing like it. I mean, there's nothing quite like Giants baseball right now. I mean,
yeah. Hey, I do like Lamont Wade.
I feel like the Giants
and a couple of the pitchers.
They'll score a run every game. One for Dan, one for Eric, and one for me. I feel like the 3 runs they get every day are for the 3 of us. And when I see them score 3, I think, hey, that's right. One for Danny, one for Eric, and one for me. And that's all we get, you know.
That's all we get. Yeah.
You know, they don't 5. I mean, you know, you see 5 runs and you're like, what happened?
Yeah.
You know?
Hey, shout out though for the bright spots on this club. It looks like it's going to be Kyle Harrison, Lamont Wade, Jung-Hoo Lee looks like he's a entertaining player, at least, and I guess when you get to Duvall and you got a lead maybe, and you have a light show, but they can't even get that right yet.
I know. Did you see Colorado's light show when they were coming up to bat in the 9th?
Yeah.
Holy crap. I was like, what is that? That was pretty damn
cool.
What'd
be really nice is if the Giants could find some team that was the kind of like their opposite, right? That just can't develop a starting pitcher to save their life, but they just have all kinds of hitters. You know what I mean? And then they need to make that kind of a trade. Like, hey, you want Carson Whisenhunt? Here's Carson Whisenhunt. Or you want, some guy in the A-ball who's got a great arm. There you go. You can have Reggie Crawford, and the Giants will take back some offensive player that's ready to contribute now. Right? I mean, it can't be that hard. It seems like other teams come up with outfield additions all the time.
Right.
I mean,
it seems like it, doesn't it?
You know, I mean, is it that hard to find a couple of guys who can swing the bat who play left and right, you know, or left or right? So, I mean, especially with Jung Hoo being such a great defensive player out there, what they really need is they just need one really good corner outfielder, and then like one, you know, maybe a guy like Jazz Chisholm who could play a couple spots and gives you a little energy. You know, the two offensive players, and they have the you know, the prospect bandwidth in their system to get this done. All it's going to take is a couple of offensive players to add to their mix, and they could potentially slide into one of the last playoff spots in the National League. And who knows, come playoff time, you could go, you know, Logan Webb, and maybe Snell's cooking by that point. Maybe you get Robbie Ray, a former Cy Young Award winner, short series. Anything can happen. Heck, we saw it with Arizona, but they do need those two bats, and I don't know where they're going to come from. I don't know what they're going to move.
We need a little bit more power. For me, I'd pass on Jazz. Jazz is he's like a Yastrzemski. I mean, I think we could do better. Yeah, he is.
He's going to run.
He's a really good defensive center fielder.
But you know, so was Yaz as a decent center fielder.
Yeah, but when you get Chisholm on base,
he doesn't get on base. Look at his on base. 304, 325, 303, 242. Right now he's at 324. His batting average isn't spectacular. He's got a little bit of pop, but so does Yaz. I mean, if we're going to trade for somebody, let's get someone a little bit better. That's all I'm saying.
Who do you want?
I don't. That's the thing.
Who's out of the race right now?
Chicago, Miami. But
they should have got Arias. If you want,
they don't have anything.
Got Arias.
You know, everybody always says. Hey, you notice that's the other thing. Everybody always says you can't make trades in May. The Padres just did.
Baloney. I'd be making trades in May.
How did the Padres make trades in May if nobody makes trades in May?
Because AJ Preller's aggressive and he knows
he's
got his hand on. He knows what's going on with every organization. The White Sox, their best player is, and it would take everything to get Luis Robert, and he's hurt a lot.
He's always hurt. How about this? And I've seen this. As a matter of fact, Glenn talked to me about it the other night, and I've seen a lot of people saying in the chat, what about trying to get Vlad Jr. out of Toronto? He's having a down year. He's young, but he does have the power. I don't know.
Is Houston going to break it up? I mean, how about Kyle Tucker?
Oh, he's going to be a free agent soon, too. I think he's got one more year.
Bregman?
Bregman is, but where are you going to play Bregman? You got Chapman.
Exactly.
And Bregman's not having a good year.
Well, you know, that's the thing, though. I mean, it's like, you know, Pat Burrell was hitting 198 in 2010, and he came to the Giants and hit almost 20 home runs. So it's like sometimes guys need a change of scenery. That's the one thing about baseball that's so intriguing is that, you know, you may find a guy who just needs a change of scenery.
Yeah, true.
And that's all it takes, you know? So it's not, it seems like they're a ways off.
Hey, there's this guy down.
They just need a couple bats.
There's this guy leading the league in batting average and home runs. I think his name's Shohei.
Speaking of which, check this out. Oh my goodness. You want to see something incredible? Look at that.
What is that?
This is the Baseball Savant. His slugging percentage, 100 percentile. His average exit velocity, 99 percentile. Barrel percentage, 100 percentile. Hard hit percentage, 100%. His sweet spot, 98%. His whiff is coming down. He's not striking out as much. His chase, again, right around mid. Not striking out much. Taking walks. The guy is freaking...
Go get that guy.
Yeah. Go get that guy.
Go get that guy.
Yeah, leave, man.
I'd offer him like $700 million, maybe most of it deferred, so I could get another great player. I got to bail. I got to go because I got to get up in the morning. I got the great Guy Haberman's going to be stopping by tomorrow. And,
hey, did the Niners make a move with something? I saw somebody posted something about Minnesota. They didn't make any moves, did they? The last day or
Minnesota?
two? Yeah, it was something on YouTube. I don't know what it was, but There was no.
Not that I saw.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Andrew. That's what a $700 million player looks like.
You know, I don't know why we were talking about money earlier. I don't know why the Giants just didn't go with $1 billion for Otani. Why? If you're going to pay $700 million,
because they were never in it. They were never in it. No way.
I don't.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest about this. I mean, it's all about what you choose to believe.
I don't think so either.
Okay,
Right.
I'm not a gigantic conspiracy theory guy, but it's pretty obvious that they didn't offer $700 million with that much deferred for Otani. And then I don't believe the people in these reports that came out from Slusser and other, Farhan could not have done a better job. I mean, what's that? I mean, seriously, are you kidding me? I mean, it's just like Danny could not have done a better job, except for the fact that he failed to accomplish his goal. He failed to accomplish the goals that he set forward. But other than that, he could not have done a better job than the job that he did. I mean, nobody runs a better channel than Dan Coach Emilio. He could not have run his channel any better. Yes, it fell apart and it's not existent and nobody watches it, but he could not have done a better job. I mean, it's just like, what are we saying?
It's sickening. It's sickening.
It's sickening. It's like, is the free hot dog really worth that much?
Yeah.
But the funny thing is the national media comes out and they criticize Farhan, but the media who's covering the actual team has nothing to say about it. It's exactly.
I don't know. I know you got to go, Larry, but let me ask you this: your last thought. This was my thought.
Before I die, or is this?
Yeah. Your last thought. Your final thought of the evening.
Final thought
on this show. My take on this Mad Dog thing, and then the fact that the question was asked by Laura Britt, and then that they put it out as their main piece on Twitter. They actually put this clip out of saying Farhan's got to go. It feels like to me that was orchestrated by somebody higher than Laura Britt. That somebody in the Giants own, because I
mean, think about the options. Well, the options are suddenly, the biggest, an entity that has done nothing but shine the Giants forever and just, constantly kissing ass. Mm-hmm. The post-game show should be called, let's make an excuse why we lost. Is suddenly going rogue. They're suddenly going rogue. They're not. These people that are afraid of their own shadow are suddenly super courageous and are taking they're going to do some hit piece on Farhan Zaidi. So, or then we're supposed to pretend that they didn't know that Dog was going to be like, yeah, he should be out of there. Or, you know what I mean? I mean, it's like they kind of knew. So I agree with what you're saying. I mean, I think that maybe the support for Farhan could be eroding from within because of the amount of money they spent and the lack of return that they're getting right now on the money that he spent. And I don't. I mean, yes, he was extended with Melvin, but I don't think it's just absolutely set in stone that Melvin couldn't remain the manager with a new general manager.
No, I think he could. I think there is a mandate somewhere.
You think a giant ownership said, hey, you know what? Have Dog on and ask him this question and then put it out on your social media and let's celebrate the fact that the biggest national Giants fan voice in the country, who's on ESPN, MLB Network, Sirius XM, that you just gave him a platform to say that your general manager should be fired. I mean, think about it this way. If you're Farhan, aren't you walking around the office going, hey, who the hell authorized that interview? And not only forget the interview, I actually kind of thought, well, you know what? They'll bury it because it was a day game on the road. The audience, it aired live at 2:00 in the afternoon. Only people who are diehards saw it, or people that were home from work, or people that were taping it. But then they put it out on all their social media and made
Exactly.
sure that everybody,
gotta-
they ran it through the media cycle, and KMBR's talking about it. 95.7 The Game's talking about it. Everybody's talking about it. Well, I gotta think somebody in Giants land authorized that.
Yes.
Are we supposed to believe that suddenly this non-courageous entity just went rogue against their flagship team without any, so somebody over at NBC Sports Bay Area is so determined to tell the truth that they're going against their hometown Giants general manager, or somebody among the ownership made a call and said, hey, why don't you do this segment? I don't know, but I thought they would have buried it. The fact that it went out on all their social media makes me think maybe they like it. Maybe they want the public. They want because that's kind of, think about how Kapler got dumped. It was like, we love him, 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 we love him. He's the greatest, he's the greatest, he's the greatest. And then suddenly in the last 48 hours, 72 hours, it was like, he may have to go. It was like, you know what I mean? It was like they were planting the seed, like there's problems, and suddenly their beat writers were writing about disconnect and discord and unhappiness. Where was that story all throughout the year? It was like totally wasn't non-existent, and then all of a sudden it was like, you know what? He's not the most popular guy, and he's got this flaw and that flaw and this flaw and that flaw. Like within 72 hours, he was fired after that.
Right.
So there was like no negativity. In a normal market, there would have been all kinds of negativity and, this and that. But they're really, everybody smooched his butt until they got the word from above that he was going to be out. And then all of a sudden it was these hit pieces on how bad Kapler was. And I kind of get the same vibe that's going to go on here with Farhan. He's the genius. He's this. Everybody's kissing his ass. It's amazing what you've done. Blah, blah, blah. 2021, 107 wins. You're an amazing, amazing, amazing. And then all of a sudden it's like, you know what? It's not so amazing. And 72 hours, he's gone. From then he's gone. So I don't know. I'm not sure what to make of it, really.
I mean, this is what I'm reading. NBC Sports Bay Area, sometimes read it NBCS Bay Area, owned as a joint venture between NBC Universal and the Giants.
Right. The Giants, that's what I'm saying. So we're supposed to believe that they either went rogue against their hometown team and made these decisions independently of the Giants, or somebody internally in the Giant ownership group signed off on that hit piece.
Yes.
And it's like, what do you believe? And I brought that up in a video, and it's like, to me, it's pretty obvious that I think that, they didn't love Farhan. I mean, they had good intentions to hire Farhan. They thought he was smart. They're now seeing that he's lacking in several areas that are really key to their business plan, which is attracting free agents to their ballpark. And I just think that they're looking at that. And then this year they loosened the purse strings. They spent more money than everybody but the Dodgers. Now, none of those guys are playing particularly well. And I think he's probably on the hot seat.
Yeah. I think he's gone if they don't make the playoffs. I really do. I mean, I think they just say, you know what? We've eaten more money in some of these contracts that Farhan signed than what we actually owe Farhan.
Well, and here's the question. If he is a lame duck that they don't trust anymore, that they're using Chris Russo to, change the public discourse on him, on their flagship. If they really, do they let him make the big moves in July this year?
Maybe not.
Or do they say, you know what? We're not going to give the keys to the kingdom and the guy to a guy who's in a lame duck out the door situation. So I don't know. I think, even though it's, what's the date today? May 10th or something? May 7th. It's a long time between May 7th and June 7th. It's going to be a really interesting month, because if the Giants continue to lose and lose and lose and can't score, and none of his acquisitions are coming to really produce, I could see the thing changing with about a month before the trade deadline. Are they going to go any further with him? That would be my guess. Because otherwise, what? I mean, it's just like you tell him. To me, there's no way that they put out all that stuff on Russo says that he'd get rid of Farhan.
Well, the great line was, if I'm the owner,
right?
Farhan's not here.
Right, but I mean, there's no way that goes out without somebody in the. You're saying the people down at NBC Sports Bay Area signed off on that and didn't get anybody at the Giants to sign off on that. They hey, by the way, we had Russo on today, and he says you guys should fire Farhan. What do we do with it? Do we bury it, play it, and No, they're like celebrating it, putting it out in all kinds of different forms, and telling tons of people about it. I gotta think somebody over there probably signed off on that, unless
NBC, like you said, went rogue and doesn't want to renew the contract.
But you're not going to go rogue and put it on social media, though.
Well, unless it's a negotiation thing with their contract coming up, and NBC doesn't want to pay the Giants what they've been paying them because they're going broke.
So what? Now the coverage is going to get super tough because they can't make as much money. I don't know. I mean, to me, they've worked in cahoots. It's been a marketing arm for the Giants. It's a total. I mean, they literally are wearing orange and black, colors on the set. Like, look at my orange tie with my orange, pocket square. I got an orange pocket square and an orange tie, and it's like
it's a Homer station, and it's pretty big, and I think I do think somebody, I don't know who, but I know there's several owners in there, and somebody authorized that.
Somebody authorized the hit.
Yeah, somebody did, because Laura Britt doesn't ask that question on her own. She just doesn't.
Of course not. And you know what? I mean, I'll throw back to you guys. No.
Yeah.
I mean,
I loved how Sean Estes felt when they said, if I have one good year out of 5, do I get a new contract? And it's like, and Estes is cracking up when he goes, no. I mean, it's like,
I'll throw it to you guys. What do you guys think? No, my God, no.
I got to believe that there's a lot more people within the organization that Farhan, they've worn out on him. I mean, hey, I heard guys in the media going off on I heard Willard go off on Farhan like crazy yesterday. And that was eye-opening.
Which is really amazing because, it's like some of these people have just been absolutely arguing for like the last 3 years that there's like, he's a genius and every movie made. And, there's a master plan and this is right. And now suddenly it's like they pulled the plug and they're going the other way.
Well, I think they've seen enough. And
exactly.
I mean, it's just so. Anyway, thanks, Larry. Great to see you.
Good to see you guys. Have a great night. We'll do this again soon. We'll talk more baseball. Go Giants. There's a couple supers in there. Don't forget those supers.
Let's get to them right now. All right.
All right.
See you
later.
See you, Larry. All right.
Thanks, Larry.
All right. Let's get to these supers.
Michael Roeder, he said this before we even started. Get the show on the road. He's probably not even in a chat no more. My Victor One says technically got 2 runs due to playing in Coors.
Yeah. Were those the 2?
That was it.
Yeah. A Giants win tonight. Kyle Harrison looked great.
He did. Giants exactly didn't scald the ball. They had the ground attack in full effect today.
Yeah, three guys.
They didn't even make it out of the infield on those hits.
I want to make one comment because it's starting to wear on me. Harrison threw a ball that was high and inside, and it was called a ball. And Fleming goes, "Oh, that could have been a strike, called a strike too." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding!" And then Pence said, "Oh, if you call that, that's a good." He says, "If pitchers getting that, there's no hope for hitters." He goes, "That's a ball." And then Fleming said nothing. I mean, are we getting to the point that we're
Just a ground ball. Remember that one? It was just a ground ball. He scorched it. Even Pence even said that was a hard hit.
Oh, I mean,
it was just a ground ball.
Just don't do the homerism. It drives me crazy because you lose the credibility of when you. Oh golly, how could we? Yeah, I'm glad Pence. I think Pence had to step in there because he was like, "This is sounding bad.
That's a bit too much."
Yeah, it was the pitch. Oh, I remembered it. I was going to have you pull it up. It was Harrison was pitching. Who was batting? You could pull it up on the chart, and it was like in the 6th or 7th inning. Oh man, it was like I couldn't believe it. Anyway.
It's pretty cold, man. You were saying it's going to be cold. I guess it was a lot colder there than I thought it was going to be. It was like in the low 40s.
Yeah.
Who pitches tomorrow? Is it Wynn or Hicks?
It's Hicks. Yeah, it's Hicks and then Wynn. We'll see. Giants have a shot to win a series. They need to do that if they're going to, they need to come home, on a good note. I mean, if they could sweep the Rockies, if they somehow sweep the Rockies, it does take the edge off the horrible trip because then you're 4-6 and you're only coming home 3 under 500. But if they win this series, they go 3-7 on the trip,
right?
And they come home 5 under,
right?
Big difference.
And here's the thing: the Giants weren't scalding the ball. Still, I mean, they're still not getting hard contact. So, I mean, yes, they were able to do enough to win the game, which is fine. Sometimes you got to win that way. But with the history, the recent history of how the Giants have been playing, man, you want to see a little bit more. You want to see some more hard hit contact. But I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So anyway, we haven't had Giovanni. People are asking, where's Giovanni?
Giovanni was in here. He was in here.
Oh, he was in here tonight.
He was in here when Ned was in here. He talking about you could book it. They're going to win or they're going to get in the wild card. You remember? It's funny when they lost those 4 straight. We never saw Giovanni, but then they win one, shows up and he's back. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. This is a team that it's going to be an interesting year because the National League is so bad as far as there's 3 good teams. 3 good teams. Mm-hmm. And someone's going to win the NL Central. So there's 4 teams that we know are in the playoffs. So we know the Braves. There's 2 spots right now. We don't know. There's 4 teams in. The Braves, Phillies, and Dodgers, and then the winner of the National League Central.
Correct.
So you're fighting for 2 wild card spots between the Padres, the Diamondbacks, the Mets, maybe the Nationals, the Reds, the Cubs or the Brewers. So there's 7. Who knows? Maybe the Cardinals. There's going to be like 7 or 8 teams bunched up going for 2 spots.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be the Padres get the 5 slot. That's where I think the Padres right now, it's going to be, and guess what? The Brewers are playing well over their expected so far. Mm-hmm. And the Cubs have the talent and they have Craig Counsell.
Yeah, he's a good manager.
He's a good manager, and he'll find a way to get the Cubbies in there, I believe. And
they got an ace in Imanaga.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to 1 or 2 teams, and these games matter right now. You could say it's early, but they all count in the standings.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of which, if Phillies, for some reason, if they fall on hard times and they tie with the Giants with the wild card, they win the tiebreaker. With
already,
games.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see the Phillies going that far.
You never
know. Injuries,
yeah.
injuries can play a part in a season. It's a long season. The Giants are what now? What's their record? 16-21. So they played 37 games.
Yeah, today was game 37. Yeah.
So they're 16-21. Let's close with taking a quick peek at that. Okay, let's just look at the standings, and we'll see kind of where they are. And I gotta get going here myself. I'm starving. I didn't get dinner tonight.
Oh, damn, you're eating late.
Yeah, I'm kind of eating late. Yeah. All right. So MLB and oh, wait a minute. You know what I didn't check tonight? I did not check that one basketball game here. Let's see. Come on. Give me the NBA. Oops. NBA. Who won the OKC won. Game 1. Blew out Dallas. Okay. All right. So we're going to the standings, and we're gonna share that. Present. All right, here we go, guys. All right. So I haven't looked at the standings as far as the American League too much. Yankees and Orioles looking good. Look at Boston hanging in there.
Boston hanging in there, yeah.
For wild card. Here comes Tampa.
Cleveland. Look at
Tampa's won 5 in a row. The sneaky little Devils.
Cleveland, Minnesota, right up there, along with Kansas City and Detroit. Chicago, wow. Forget about them.
Texas won big time today. I heard Marcus Simeon had a big day.
Did he?
Yeah.
Texas and Seattle sitting up there.
A's have, after winning 6 in a row, lost 3 in a row. Look at that, Houston. Wow. What is that? Wow. You might just think if those guys fall apart.
Look at the Phillies, won 7 in a row.
Look at that. They are 3 up on Atlanta. Look at them. Look at the Nationals. I love seeing that. I love seeing the Nationals do well. They're playing young guys. I love it. Brew Crew and the Cubbies. Pirates and Reds are stumbling. Cardinals aren't doing much.
Dodgers rolling away with it.
Dodgers rolling away. And I don't think they've finished playing tonight. Oh, yes, they have. They must have won tonight. Yeah, they won tonight. San Diego lost tonight, but they're still there. See, and the Giants are now in sole possession of 4th place. And that's kind of where I picked them to be this year. It really is. Now, wild card, again, we're not. We're
I don't even care about that right now.
We're way early. They're 3 out. Yeah, they're 3 out. But but we'll see. We'll see where this thing goes. This is going to be a big 2 games. They got to, if they can sweep, they're kind of coming home on a high note, and maybe that carries over against the Reds. But if they somehow falter and lose the next 2, which is possible because you're going with Hicks and Wynn, who are starting to show signs of some shakiness. Think about this, guys. Giants won tonight and look good. And you might say, it's the Rockies. They got this in the bag. They got the next 2. They're going to come home. They've won 2 games on this road trip. And both those games were pitched by Kyle Harrison.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
So
let's see how Hicks does tomorrow, because his last outing wasn't exactly
nope. And
wasn't very good.
We'll see where he's at. Yeah. It's going to be
granted this Colorado team, they stink.
It's a bad team. They're what, 8-29?
Yeah. They're the worst team in the National League.
Yeah. And I would think they're gonna put
you gotta beat the worst team in the National League, right? You cannot lose a series.
Can't lose a series. But it happens. They split with San Diego for 4 games, right?
Yeah.
It happens. We'll see. All right, guys. We'll be back tomorrow night, 8:30. Okay?
Sounds good.
8:30 tomorrow night. Everybody, till then, have a great day tomorrow.
Woo!